Citizens of Phandalin will be a community roleplay opportunity where people can have a character that they can have fun with. If you just want to jump in the tavern and do some in character roleplay, if you have a character build that is maybe not optimized or considered subpar and you want to try to play it and make it usable. If you can't commit to a full campaign but are looking for the feel of a campaign and commitment to a character that you have created, those are options for you to check out the channel. Join when you can, no expectations, and have some fun.
Hello.
Our DM was muted.
It's
For long. The D&D Play 20.
Greetings.
We are a... wow.
who are we?
Let me
We
start
are.
again.
So much going
we are
on.
a group of incredible people in the community that makes up D&D Play 20. We love roleplay and Dungeons and Dragons and TTRPGs and stories, and we have a lot of fun in meeting new people and playing and embracing people all over the world to join us in this beautiful world of TTRPG and fantasy and all of that nice stuff. Today, I am a bit distracted because today is a very special day. It is the season 1 finale of Legends of Methis. For those of you who have been here for a while, you know what this is all about. This is my homebrew campaign in my homebrew world, and it is coming to an end. Today, it'll be the season finale. It might be a little shorter or a little longer than usual. Bear that in mind. And then we'll take about 6 months and we'll come back with season 2. So that will be, you'll see today what that will be all about. If there are changes in the story and continuity between season 1 and season 2, I do apologize. There might be people who have a chance to change characters or change a few things, but the main storyline will not change. The main people will not change. So bear with us as we bring this first season, its arc, to an end. As a quick recap, after I did a really, really big recap on last session when we came back from the holiday. So I'm not going to bore you with another 15 to 20 minutes recap, but I'll just recap last session where the players and the characters learned a lot about the history of Methis. They started with being told a few things they didn't quite understand. How, if you do that, they're not going to hear you. They started with a few they started with a few bits of information after meeting the queen of the Amazon, of the new Amazon, and learning that they have lived for thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, and how that was possible. They also learned that Nyx's god, the god Nyx is worshipped, Delin was not actually a god, but just a very high level enlightenment of being that was chosen by the Amazon to become an icon for the rest of the people, to drive them to be better and beat the even beat him and become chosen and be an even further enlightenment. And then they were taken to a chamber that full of illusion magic that showed them the history of Methis, how Methis had been created as a lair, a small moon that was a lair of an astral dragon by the name of Rienath, who traveled the astral sea and the multiverse, helping and learning about different races and cultures and peoples. And one of those travels, he found the Amazon fighting an incursion of mind flayers. He helped them escape and offer them protection in his own home, in his own horde, which was this beautiful moon in this solar system. And what happened was he incurred the wrath of many, many enemies throughout his thousands and billions of years of life in the astral sea. For those of you who know the astral sea, know that you don't age whilst in the astral sea. So that is why it lived so long. And it caused incredible damage. They slowly brought more and more people to populate that moon and become almost like a dwarf planet. But that the wrath of many beings caused many wars and many catastrophic damage to the world, to the point where it became a simple piece of asteroid with only one continent and one sea. And that was when the astral dragon close to disappeared. It stayed close, but not seen a lot, not to attract attention to themselves, especially because it adopted two little dragons from one of the worlds it had been to, Kryn, where it brought a small amethyst dragon egg and a small sapphire dragon egg, who grew up to be beautiful great worms that it looked up to their father. But when their father finally decided that they were now old enough to fend for themselves, returned to its adventures in the astral sea, and their children were meant to stay protecting its lair. Now, as all children do, problems were created, and bad company and brought catastrophe to the world once more, causing the death of both dragons and their friends who lived here, and almost destroying the entire population of the world, leaving the Amazon to being the only living creatures here. So they slowly, with the knowledge they had been passed down from the astral dragon, were managed to repopulate the world for several times. But every time they brought up a new civilization, after a couple thousand years, it would go into a massive war and collapse itself, and they would have to restart the process. They got tired, and as the world is nearing 1,000 years, again, the current civilization is nearing 1,000 years again, there is a fourth war brewing already. And they have decided to no longer interfere, but instead to focus their efforts on attempting to reach Rienath, who hasn't been seen since thousands and thousands of years ago. So they have created this god system, having people believe that if they become the best at what they do, they'll ascend to divinity. What actually happens is that they get called forth to be part of the Amazon, to be trained and enlightened, and if they succeed in passing those challenges, will be sent, if they so wish, to protect the people, or in expeditions to find said astral dragon. That is why in the book that displays the known gods of Methis, there have been multiple gods of the same thing, because some of them decided to go on a journey to find the astral dragon and have never returned.
Not full that context.
So the group was given a choice whether they want to stay and attempt to prevent this war, stop it, but that there would be dire consequences to themselves for that choice. They could wish to see for themselves the Isle of Naught, the Forbidden Isle protected by magic, where the dragons are said to have died. Or to skip ahead and be given a way to search for this astral dragon themselves. The party took a day to decide, would sleep over it. They discussed among themselves, and as they slept, I think you can all mark a long rest, those of you who haven't. You awaken the next day to be faced with this decision, which is where we'll pick it up.
I have a question, everyone. If we are going to be going away...
Good morning.
Oh yeah, good morning. As a god, would we get the rights of one?
You are in your room still, so you don't
I'm
have
talking
to them.
to Allah. Do you think... Like... Do you think we've ascended to godhood, technically?
Nick's
In their
is confused.
spiritual terms, sorry.
I certainly have.
I love that one's confidence.
I mean, I would mind. I didn't do the character introductions. What am I doing? Guys, introduce yourself. Who you're playing. I'm
Okay,
tripping
I'll
today.
go first.
Yeah, go, Peter.
I am the formerly bestial, scabbed, pustule-covered Firbolg named Cinder, who has since been healed of all my wounds and now appear to be blind on the screen. But I am incredibly handsome. I do think I'll get the horns removed, though, because they can be a bit hard when I'm getting dressed, you know, pulling the shirts over and stuff. So I'll probably have those filed down. Maybe dye my hair white? Anyways, I'm a sorcerer. I'm sorry, I got distracted. I am a sorcerer, divine soul. And I am taller than anybody else in this party. And I popcorned it over to Lorcan, who is the second tallest.
Hi, I'm John. I'm playing Lorcan. Lorcan is a brass dragon who is basically learning how to become a giant, strangely enough, so far, I think. Because he's learning all these giant runes and giant powers, and it's interesting currently. He's basically a rune knight at the moment, and he's just loving what he's learning. And he's best mates with Nexus, who will be introduced later on.
I like how you say Nexus when Nix pops up. This is Nexus. I'm like, wait. So, hello, I'm Raza. I play Nyx. She's a halfling gnome from the Port of Grace. She has undertaken quite the adventure, trying to keep her friends alive and trying to solve epidemics and crack, I guess, plots, ciphers. She has come a long way with all of them, and with her, practicing her alchemist ways, she is unsure where they should go next. As she considers Lorcan's question about being gods or such. Yeah. That's her for now. We'll see where the future takes her.
And finally, last but not least, Nexus,
The actual Nexus.
NPC, friend,
Whoa, whoa,
Lorcan's,
brother.
Lorcan's brother in arms, Cinder's permanent and eternal enemy, and Nick's potential interest.
Them two an interest. It's interesting. Like,
It's interesting, yeah.
It's funny to watch.
So,
Precisely.
what's precisely?
Nothing.
What? What? Why can't I see what you speak?
You're
Are you
confusing
messaging
her.
each other privately?
No, I'm not.
Did Nexus appear on screen when I did
He
it?
did. I saw him.
Okay. Peter probably took him down very quickly.
Oh, no. Sorry. There he is. I had to tab to the screen. I was working in Zoom.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's Nexus. You know, he doesn't deserve the camera time, but, you know.
All right, so yes, he asked the question. Nexus gave his 2 cents, so I wouldn't mind that at all. It's up to you to ask other people present here or find the answer for yourselves.
Good point. I'll just class it as a yes. Anywho. So, how are we doing this then? Who do we talk to? Anyone? Do they come to us? Do we have breakfast or?
Breakfast, there's always food in the room.
Hell yes. Well, I'm getting some breakfast then.
Hmm. Just a heads up. I think people on the stream can't hear Lorcan that well. Just giving you a heads up.
I'm hearing him. Oh, but I'm in Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah. The stream.
The sound is coming through Zoom anyway.
Yeah, good for the person. Good for you, Peter. I can hear him.
Well, Ghost. Ghost, I got a message just for you. What's up, dude?
So, I'm having food. Bye.
I'm with you.
One person said he's fine. One said
He is fine. Wink.
Hey. God, you always say that.
The fine-looking dragonborn.
Wink, wink.
All right.
nudge, nudge.
Whilst Nexus and Lorcan stuff their mouths, what are you two doing?
I have to decide on my voice. Incredibly handsome fella here. Think I'll get my voice box modified. I will be waiting to see what Nix is doing.
Wow, look at him. So, pass over to you, Nix. Well, the thing is, Nix is not very talkative right now. The gravity of the decisions awaiting them is weighing on her. They've been given a choice whether they should stay to maybe help with the war, maybe save lives, or whether they should maybe venture forward into space for astral sea.
Into the nah. Sorry.
Into the
Copyright.
Copyright.
I didn't do
We got sued.
I didn't do it.
And seek out the dragon that started it all, really.
That's not...
Yeah, Peter, Guys, we're having a quick technical issue. We will be back in 5 minutes. Peter, intermission real quick.
Oh, we'll be back. Bye.
Is it a second?
Yeah.
I'm working on it.
What happened? Hi, everyone.
Good evening.
Hello again.
So,
I didn't realize my billing didn't go through.
that's okay. We had some technical
It's
issues.
the
We are
it's the
back.
tech guy's fault.
Wait, just don't. Okay. You
It's
guys are talking
Methis.
about deciding. This is Methis. We know Tech hates Methis and me particularly, so it's fine. Now, I do have something to say on the private chat of Zoom in a minute. Even though
Oh yeah.
you guys are all in the wrong places in the
Yeah, we are.
I
Apparently,
am-
I am Lorcan now, and Peter's next,
Oh, I am.
and
Perfect.
Jonathan Cinder. Tech guy strikes
What?
again.
What?
Your Nick's
We're in the
Cinder.
wrong places on the street.
I'm trying to fix everything.
I know it's okay.
Next is feeling all feminine suddenly.
Okay. Zoom is Cinder now.
No. On the stream, Peter.
On the stream, Peter.
Place, that's cheating.
Oh, that. Who cares?
that one.
Okay. Is it fixed? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
See what I go through, people. Are you in there?
Your job.
Anyway, I will let everyone know this was decided before. It's the only thing I let them decide before the stream. If they now change their minds, I will kill them. So heads up to everybody.
We're gonna fight this war. I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, death it is then. the players decided.
Oh, wait.
So-
Am I supposed to be typing in Zoom?
No, you're good.
I.
These multiple keyboards are throwing me off my game here.
So what was Nick's doing? You were trying to say that you were.
So Nyx was contemplating their choice, basically. Right now, as she thinks it through, and she's trying to not get distracted, because her mind keeps dwelling to the tiny Nexus incident from yesterday. But she's trying to put that out of her mind, because every time Nexus speaks, she imagines him like tiny, or eats. But as she tries to push that away, she goes, I think we might need to play the bigger picture. She keeps thinking that they might need to, instead of staying here, as much as it would break her heart not helping potentially thousands of people in this war, it might be best to get to the source of it. So she's thinking, perhaps we should go. That's all she can think about as Nexus and Lorcan. That's just like sitting there.
That lovely one.
They are
That's what she's
making-
thinking right now.
They are doing
Yeah.
a contest of who can fit more grapes into their mouth.
Oh yes.
She thinks as Nexus is eating, like trying to prove Lorcan wrong. He's like, no. Would he die if he was a tiny Nexus eating the grape without size? The random things she's thinking as she's like doing that. But yeah, that's pretty much what she's just contemplating right now. Over to Cinder. What do you? I gave you plenty of time.
Cinder's like, I don't know what's happening.
I don't know.
I am thinking perhaps we go to the Isle of Nut and then we go see the stars and the sky and the suns and maybe ride a shooting star. Wouldn't that be awesome? So, that's my vote.
Did you say that out loud randomly?
Yeah.
Eating breakfast.
Because I'm lost in my own little world. I truly am.
Did you all have breakfast? There is a knock on the door.
Who is it?
Hello. Morning. Come in. Then she looks at Nexus and Lorcan and gives them like look like to clean themselves up.
A grape falls out of Lorcan's mouth.
Yeah, Ray rolls out of Nexus's mouth.
and you see Lexus putting one more. Whoa!
I just elbow Nexus in the gut.
Move! And towards the door. Can we say the door opens and the grape
Yeah.
hits
The door opens and it's Dylan.
Poo, 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 poo.
And there's just grapes flying at him.
Is it possible for a character to choose to fail death saves? 'Cause Nyx is like, she looks at Nexus because she runs up to Dylan. What happened to Dylan? Did he just like deflect it? Did it actually hit him in the
None of them
There-
hit. There's like an
She deflected it.
Yeah.
Didn't
Just see
do
them
anything.
sliding down his force field.
yeah. Kind of, yes.
Because I'm so sorry. She glares at Nexus. What have I said about great projectiles at breakfast? No.
Since when has he done great projectiles? I want to know. When did you do great projectiles before?
He's done it before. Trust me. Sometimes when you're asleep. Sometimes doing it at Cinder. When he's
Oh
sleeping.
yeah, that was that one time. That's true. When Cinder said that Nyx was feeding him grapes and stuff, I spent the night throwing grapes, spitting grapes back at them. That was fun.
A lovely way to keep entertained.
Anyway, how can we?
Anyway.
That she's, yeah.
Dylan is just standing there at the door,
What we're talking about great.
like hands held it in the formal manner, waiting, not said a word.
I'm gonna pose in the same way.
Greeting.
Good morning. She's like, she's
up?
like,
The Queen wishes to know if you have made a decision.
she looks at the rest of them.
Have we made a decision?
Well, she looks towards her again. She's kind of
No,
like
I think we have, haven't we?
considerate. Well, from my perspective, I feel like we should probably seek out Raynar. But I think maybe we should also. She looks towards Cinder. Maybe we can make a stopover as well. I believe there was some thoughts of us going to make sure everything was right on the Isle of Knot. She looks to the other.
If you wish to go inspect the Isle of Knot for yourself, to see whether or not a Naga imprisoned in crystal is present, you would be free to do so and return. Is that your wish?
She looks. She looks to everyone in turn.
I'm good with that plan. I do have a question though. Is there a royal tailor that could design me an outfit kind of like yours that has blue and white and some really nice designs, maybe a little touches I add?
Nyx dies on the inside.
He looks
Well,
at
I
you.
like his outfit.
Is that
She, her.
Yeah. Nyx looks at you.
Well, I see a picture of a blue dude standing on a floating thing.
It's a female.
Would you please stop calling my god a dude? He glares at you again.
I'm gonna say, dude is very generic.
Anyway,
That's not a she.
these were made by the Amazon, so you'd best speak to them. But they are not in the business of trading their magic secrets. I have long hoped to learn a lot from them. And as much as I have learned customs and knowledge, magic has not been passed down to me. I believe their magic is very unique to their species.
It's also because they've got a force field stopping other people.
So you've noticed.
I know we were told about it.
No, I personally noticed.
Oh, I was told about it.
So, do you wish to see the Isle of Knot before speaking to the Queen?
Why did I say
We probably should let them know. If I said it wrong.
If you wish to see the Isle of Knot first, the Queen will be informed.
I think that would be a good idea.
If
I
you do
think that
this,
is the case.
if you do this, you accept the responsibility of convincing the Naga that torments our lands that their sister isn't here. We will not risk your lives in that treacherous land without you taking on that duty.
I do have a question. How do we tell this Naga when we don't know where this Naga is?
The Naga is a connection to you.
Oh!
It cannot reach here, but once you are out of their protective field, even Isle of Knot's protective field will be broken as long as she gets called forth within it.
Which bit of me is connected? Can I get rid of it?
I can get rid of it for you. Yes. But then you wouldn't be able to summon her.
Well, these three can.
She and
Are
I
we-
are like this.
oh. Are we all connected? Or is it just one of us in particular?
You are all connected. Some of you may seem to not remember.
I've only heard tell of Naga. I don't want to be connected to anything weird.
Do you wish to remain forgetful?
Depends on how creepy the memories are.
One second. And he waves his hand and casts a powerful spell that somehow is allowed, and you all have your memories restored.
Oh, sucker, this better not hurt me.
No, it does not.
We all have our memories restored. DM, what are my memories?
No, your memories have already been restored. You were never suppressed the memories of the Naga.
Well, because my wife is wondering where my memory went.
That's weird, creepy fish.
Did you say that out loud?
No.
There
He's-
always has to be the brawn
Huh?
and the muscle. Cannot only be the brains talking.
Why am I a brawn? He's buffer than me.
The brawn and the muscle.
Whatever he is.
His gestures at the both of you.
What about that one? Nexus.
He said the brawn and the muscle. He gestures to you and Nexus.
I was on about Cinder.
Cinder,
He's
he
buffer than
considers
both of us at this
he
moment.
he
I'm the
considers
stud.
it the brain.
He's a brain. He's posing in a mirror.
I'm sorry, but Cinder the brain.
He is considered one of the smart ones.
But it's alright. At least I know what I'm good at.
Did. Moment.
How do we get there?
Follow me.
That doesn't explain anything.
You will see. Please follow.
Can you have the tailor get started on my outfit while we're gone? I was quite serious about that. I'm thinking long white robes with some blue trim. Maybe some
When
stars sparkling in the what do they call it? A scarf? Whatever that thing is. Or vestments. There you go. That would be cool.
I shall put in an order for you.
Thank you. Because I've already designed my character that way.
Are you coming?
I will come. For I am a hero.
One more grape. And just catches it. Throws it up and catches it before following.
I'm gonna take a bunch in my hand as we go. And I'll be flicking them to the side.
Are you coming, Nix?
She, for a moment, doesn't seem to hear you because she's still processing what was unlocked in her mind. And she goes, yeah, I'm on my way. And then she sees you with the grapes. She's like, enough with the grapes.
Yeah.
What?
I'll flick one towards Nix.
I honestly don't know what's gotten into them.
And DM almost caught.
Yeah.
Right?
Nix follows.
Alright.
Dylan.
He leads you down many, many, many steps. You assume you are now well into this mountain of rock in the middle of the desert. And it takes about half an hour going down
What, is this one gonna
staircases. And as you reach the bottom, there is a big archway with a big circle of stone around it, with sigils and symbols. And there are guards, Amazon guards, and there is one other person there, which I'm trying to show you as we know.
Stand by.
And by because they don't like me. Yep. So you see. It's not working as it does. Okay, you see this woman standing there.
Okay.
Again, 12 feet tall.
She's hot.
Got horns like you, actually.
Ooh.
She goes, I'll keep it. At your service.
A keeper.
I'll keep it.
Oh, I'll keep her. Like the fish.
No, I'll keep it.
Nix nudges Lorcan. Pleasure.
What?
Because he keeps coloring it.
I am one of the most powerful wizards here of war magic. I shall take you to see the Isle of Knot. I shall wait for you for a total of 7 hours and 59 minutes. If you are late, you shall be trapped there and have to find your way out of there. If you return to me within that time, I will bring you back here. But remember that if you stay stuck in the Isle of Knot, magic will immediately come into play so that you forget everything you've ever found out about our home, the New Amazon. Do you understand?
How long?
7 hours and 59 minutes once we reach there.
Why not 8 hours?
Because after 8 hours, I will be back here.
Okay.
Is this understood?
8 hours.
Crystal.
Nix, is this a good idea?
Nexus is like, I didn't get it. I
Next,
mean, I understood that you're
next-
gonna leave us there and have our memories erased. I don't understand the why.
Me neither. I just know that we have 8 hours. Hey!
7 hours and 59
8
minutes.
hours. Hey!
you see, because she, she values her group, she asks on their behalf. Is that the certain protocol for something? Why is it so specific, the time?
It is the time that it takes for the spell to be cast for in case you do not return with me. Your memories will be erased.
So will this be on 59 or as you say 59?
You
Or
have to
like-
have reached me by 7 hours 59 minutes after we reach the
But there's 59 seconds after that too.
Yes,
Wow.
that is the time that it takes for me to cast the spell back here.
Okay, so we actually want to message you by 58
No.
after just to play
Ed.
safe.
At 7 hours 59 minutes, I will start casting the spell to bring me back. If you are not near enough of me, I will come back alone.
On you speak.
If some of you have come back and the rest of you have not, those who remain shall have their memories erased. Those who will come back will remember everything and proceed with their journey. Do you understand?
I understand, but honestly, I'm a little nervous now.
If any of you stay behind, we will not allow any of those who remember to contact that person. That person will be stripped of their powers and reverted back to a commoner person and teleported back to their hometown. Do you understand?
That's a little harsh considering we already
Yeah.
had that before we came to Amazonia.
Yes, but your level of enlightenment has given you more.
Is there room to negotiate that?
No. And the longer I stand here and argue, the less time I am willing to give you.
Hey,
Okay, I'm ready.
Stop talking, Will.
We understand, machine.
Perfect. Please step into the circle.
Nexus, or Cinder pushes Nexus into the circle first. Waits a second and then steps in.
As you step into the circle, she steps in last.
Okay.
Dellen is staying outside of the circle and waves you goodbye. As she takes a minute to raise the glyphs in stone. You've heard of teleportation magic before. And usually the runes will glow when you cast it. But she's casting it in a way where the stone runes levitate and glow around you. It is very different kind of magic they're casting.
It's very strange.
And as they rotate and levitate and glow around you,
Can I-
do
As this is happening, can I turn Nexus into a gnome
Into a
with
what?
polymorph?
also. Well, yes, but
Can't do
how
that.
long does polymorph last?
It's an hour.
An hour.
Isn't that an
Alright.
attack spell?
It is.
Should I? It would be a
Exactly.
great joke on him.
But we're still inside.
You are still there.
Uh,
You can do it when you arrive if you want.
Nix would like to do something less chaotic. As this is happening, to Dellen, she will look at her and smile and go, "Thank you for all those enlightening moments." In case she'll never get the chance to say that again. She might never get the chance to say that to Dellen.
They smile.
She just thinks so.
It has been a pleasure guiding your path, young one.
Hopefully this is not the last time we speak. And she goes out and makes sure Nexus is okay. She'll like stand next to Nexus. And make sure he's not like nervous about the magic.
As the stone runes spin faster and faster and faster, you all see a glow of light. And then all of a sudden, you are affronted by a terrible smell. I want everybody to do me con saves.
Oh,
It's
Dellen.
not me this time.
She goes,
Nexus,
she goes,
can you
"Cinder,
keep
Did you not have a shower?
My 18 says yes.
My nat 20 also says yes.
Damn. Nice.
9?
24.
Did Lorcan roll a 9?
13. 13.
13. You were the only one who failed because it was 18, 18.
Alright, I'll do a reroll. I've got enough of them.
You said it was 18, right, Cinder?
Yes, I was an 18.
Alright, that's much better. That's 25.
Okay. So you all pass. You are all very affronted by this terrible stench, but you did live with Cinder for a while. So
Oh, that's
the
mean.
old Cinder.
That's me.
So you suppress it, but this is the pure smell of death and decay.
I'm home.
This place feels decrepit and horrible.
Where are we?
I am putting you on the map.
Sure. This is the Isle of Knot.
But you look, and in front of you, if you zoom out, there seems to be a barrier.
Oh yeah, no, I can see
A
that.
magical barrier where you can't really see through it at the minute, but it seems like it's completely different from where you are. You see the lady that teleported with you leans against the tree, this tree, under it, I guess. It's counting. You have 7 hours, 58 minutes.
58,
and
58 minutes.
I can tell why you only want to spend like 8 hours here. The smell is not it.
if it was for the smell, I wouldn't come here for a minute. It doesn't affect me.
Oh,
All right. Well, thank you very
Proceed.
much. We need to go, guys. She starts to like try and lead the way forward.
not then, shall we?
I run. I dash out to there.
All right, you start
And
running.
dies.
I need.
Come on, how many con saves did you have?
It's not a
How many
constant.
cards?
Well, me and Naga are like this.
I
I
need
mean-
you to give me a survival.
We dream about each other. $15.
You all see Cinder start running forward, and then all of a sudden, he disappears into the mist.
Oh, great!
Cinder, you are lost.
All right. So what Nick
I
is
might have
gonna do-
miscalculated.
What Nyx is going to do. It might not work, but what she was going to attempt to do. Seeing him disappear, it's like, all right, so no one can be trusted to just run off. So she's going to pull out the rope from the bag of holding and start tying a rope around everyone's like waist, so we're linked, and then we're going to walk forward.
I'm not gonna run off.
Next.
Did you call out for Cinder at all?
Nah.
Can she attempt? First of all, how does it feel casting magic her? Does it feel like she can?
You don't sense the pressure of the shield you felt in Amazon.
Like that? It's okay. She'll attempt. 1 second. I think she still needs to see you, but 1 second. She's gonna point in the direction Cinder went and attempt to cast message. And she would call out, she'd like telepathically, Cinder, where are you?
I'm right here.
You get no pings.
Oh, man.
She shakes
Cinder,
her
you
head.
continue to run forward, yes?
What?
Are you
Huh?
continuing to run forward?
You're still running, right?
Well, I'm lost now. Yeah, straight forward.
But you don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So roll me a d12.
Just to see which way you end up.
4.
You eventually get to somewhere to that barrier where that looks like almost like a mirror. But it's like a mist, like a mirror mist. Do you go through? Do you stay? What do you do?
Here's where I get smart. Okay. Give me a few seconds here.
We'll be trying to catch up to him in the meantime.
Yeah, we'll get
And
to that.
Nix will be trying to chart a way forward if you need a survival check.
Okay, I'm gonna call out for the others, and I'm gonna make sparks appear with prestidigitation above my head,
Okay.
How high do they go?
and musical notes.
What is the range of prestidigitation?
10 feet. But I mean, the light would. I don't know.
Like a flare. He's trying to sound like a flare.
All right, fine. I will shoot. Well, it's
Give me a performance roll.
my firebolt is black. That won't help. Give you a what?
Performance.
Okay. Performance. Ooh. Oh, no, that's persuasion. Ignore that one. Thank God. 2 points more. 13. 1 point less.
Okay.
Does he just keep sparks?
Yeah. I'm over here. Here.
I would like
Well, he seems fine.
everyone to roll perception. The DC is high.
Well, it's not going to be me to pass it.
Yee. I might need to use a reroll point for that one.
Perception. I got a 19.
It's not Nexus.
19.
Okay.
Okay.
Plus 1 mod.
Shame.
1 sec while I use a reroll
It's a
point for that
shame
one.
like it's higher than 19. That's unfair.
Shame. That's a little better. So
It better be more than 19.
it is. It's 20. It's 24.
Nix, you do. Look at you being sneaky. Nix, you spot lights like little fireworks, but in a completely different direction than what you saw Cinder go.
Yeah.
Points. That could be him. And so she's gonna try and lead them that way. And in doing so,
Survival.
so if she takes the lead, she'll also then cast Enhance Ability. She'll whisper, Dylan, guide me, and she's gonna give herself the advantage on perception, like wisdom.
Wisdom.
For survival.
Okay.
Yeah.
Survival.
Survival. Alright, please, Dylan, actually guide her. Otherwise, it's going to be a short journey that we'll never remember.
And Cinder, roll me a d4, please.
Uh-oh.
The exact. Oh. 16. Wow, double 16s. Oh.
By the way, until you spotted those fireworks, you walked for 2 hours.
2 hours? Summon the Naga.
You haven't even found the lair.
Summon the Naga. She's not here. Look, see, she's not here.
Can we just go, please?
What was your
Not-
what was your survival?
19. It was 16.
Okay, that was enough. You managed to reunite with Cinder. Cinder thinks it's been like a couple of seconds. since he saw you last. He just realized you guys weren't there, so he kind of signaled you.
Oh, hi. It's about time y'all caught up. You were all of 2 seconds behind me.
Do we know how much time has gone past? Do we
Yes,
get a sense
you
of
think
it?
it's been 2 hours.
What's she
Cinder,
Yes.
Cinder, no more running away. And she starts to wrap a rope around his waist as well to keep him like with the group.
I will not be held to the conforms of the society.
If you run away again, we're gonna lose time. It took us
Ugh.
almost 2 hours to find you.
I'm gonna walk through the
Okay.
shield.
So
Okay.
we have 2 hours and 59 minutes. Let's go. And she's gonna go.
It's only
with
been
Morgan.
a few seconds.
As you walk through it, you see a completely different, but
Graveyard.
yes, but it's there's no more stench.
Oh.
Life is blooming. It is just foggy and dreary, but the life, the trees, the plants don't look dead like everywhere else around you before. But there are these enormous bones across the floor.
Does Nixa get a sense of what kind of creature will have these kind of like the massive bones, right? As we can see.
Yes.
Where did they say this
kinda
Naga was kept? Or was supposed to be kept?
The Naga, if it's encased in crystal, it would be at the lair of the son of Rainia, which would be
It.
their lair.
Where is the lair?
You don't know.
I don't know.
So
Maybe
you
we
can
should
roll me
ask.
a nature or an arcana or a history. One of the three. And all of you sense that magic is unstable here.
Nature.
You don't even have to roll for it. It is a very clear feeling that whereas nature is blooming, magic is unstable. Severely unstable.
History of
History was
16 is
22.
enough. Anybody
22.
else?
22.
I rolled a 10.
Okay.
Mrs. Nerd has got one.
What did he roll? She roll?
22.
22.
Okay. A second.
Alright, Nexus, what's he roll?
13 is not enough. So Lorcan and Nyx are the only ones that realize that these are the bones of a great one. A very, very ancient dragon.
Not the wriggly one.
No. But then you realize that Nyx realizes that it's not just one. There are two.
2 sets of bones, like
Two sets of dragon bones. And then you see even more bones. And because you got the highest, you realize that there was a creature you saw once that matches the remaining bones that don't seem to be the dragon bones.
Oh.
You remember seeing and fighting a Thomocratus.
I forgot what that
A Tromocratus. Tromocratus? Whatever it's called.
the large kraken creature.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I will post a picture in a second.
I feel like we did fine.
Tromocratus. That's it. I will get you to see it in a second.
So we need to find the lair.
Yeah. But these bones you took, like, these are dragon bones, and there's 2 distinct sets as well, and
This is the creature.
do you remember?
Ooh.
We've
Pretty
not
sure we
fought.
fought like
Have we?
Session 1.
Session 1?
we did, yeah. In the dream,
Oh, in the dream.
not the
Yeah.
dream, in the retelling
Yeah, yeah.
of the history.
It was like Thermocrates.
Tromocrates.
So- This-
Tromo.
Promo.
Trauma. 2 sets of great worm bones, and you say
Tromocrates.
what? There was another creature. It was a Tromocratus bones as well. Right.
We need to find the
You wouldn't
lair.
know its name, but you recognize the creature.
Yeah, there's like a flash of that, because we have our memories back, which it will like trigger.
Is that the giant lobster one?
I wouldn't call it a lobster. I think it's more akin to a kraken. I think
It's got
she
claws.
wouldn't be. She wouldn't be sure. She's just like an answer to that, I guess. We should keep going.
Yeah. Well, do you know where the lair might be?
Can she? She'll see if she can follow any signs on my lead.
Roll me a
towards, like,
perception.
that.
You have advantage.
Question: Has it actually? It's actually been 2 hours, right? Or is it the time differential with?
You feel like
Does
it's
it-
been
does
2
it-
hours.
Ah, okay. No, because I need to know because my spell is technically an hour.
I know.
Yeah.
I told you
Alright,
you
so
have
if-
advantage.
Okay.
I will tell you when you don't.
I'll tell you when you have lost your power.
I didn't say it was because of the spell. I said you have advantage on your perception. Didn't say it was because of the spell.
Okay. That's fine. I did need the advantage. That was it? Sorry, survival? Perception.
Perception.
Perception. Good. I have, alright. I have advantage on that, yeah. That is going to be a 24.
You look around. You're not sure it's a lair, but seems to be a big cave entrance over here. How you're gonna get down, you're not sure.
Jump.
It's a couple hundred
Uh-huh.
feet.
Yeah, so she'll point in that direction.
Absolutely.
You say that, Lorcan, and she's like,
What did you say?
Abseil.
What is that?
She was thinking more like climbing down, rock climbing.
What is this chasm? Is it a chasm in between?
Yeah, you don't know. It's very cloudy. You don't know what's down there.
So which is the best way?
Nitz,
Hmm.
I'm able to turn into another creature. Is there one that could help us with this?
What kind
Can
of
you
creatures can you
fly?
turn into?
That is a very good question. Whatever that spell says I can turn into.
Yeah, he can. Yeah. Above that.
A
You
beast.
tell her about it. He goes, right, yeah, you could turn into like a giant eagle or anything that is large enough to carry people down.
What's the... Does it say if there's a CR rating limit?
There is.
There is.
What's my
Equal
CR
or
rating?
less than the target. It's your level basically.
Equal or less? Okay.
Equal or less.
So I'm an 8, so I can turn into a CR8?
Beast, which.
Beast.
But I thought you said eagle. I prepared one.
A giant eagle.
It's on the
Oh,
screen.
I said that. I'm not sure what Cinder was gonna pick. to be fair.
What are you gonna pick?
Give me a second while...
You need to have seen it.
Okay,
That's
I'm checking.
Maybe you've seen a giant eagle in the Ferial.
Yeah, nothing good's of high CR. Okay,
It could also technically be something with a climbing speed. You can, if it's big enough and strong enough, you can
Ooh,
climb down.
You gotta stop climbing
That would have been in a span of seconds. Cinder is the one choosing to.
down.
I will turn into a giant ape.
Okay.
You got a what? You want to turn to
A
what?
giant ape.
With a 40-foot climbing speed. Huge beast.
4 foot.
Next sword. Get him to calm down. And he goes, Cinder, do you remember? We need to climb. We need to climb down. Just like does that for him.
I'll pick her up in my hand, Nyx, like
Ah!
she's the blonde girl in King Kong.
King Kong.
And I'll poke her.
Ow! Stop! Bad Cinder. Just climb down. Climb down. She'll message you in your mind in case you don't understand. Climb down. We don't have much time.
It's only concentrating up to an hour.
I look at Lorcan and Nexus, waiting for them to climb aboard.
Oh,
on my
are you getting on the
backers.
mat?
Yeah, you can.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm pretty big.
Big, yeah.
Yes.
I'm
Okay, I'll give it
huge! Okay, with a strength of 23, I should be able to carry everyone, right?
I did say you are now permanently large, correct?
Who, me?
Lorcan.
Oh.
Did I not say that last
No.
time? Perhaps not yet.
So,
Don't recall.
Perhaps not yet. Then.
I can still
I
carry him.
still got my spell that makes me grow large, so
Yeah.
I'm guessing that would upgrade to huge if I'm large. Or not.
Ooh, I
yes.
even get multi-attack. Nice. I think I'll stay an ape for a little while.
Why is it not letting me do what I want? 1 second.
I just got
Hey.
an upgrade to my hit points.
Yeah.
Finally. Do you
Very
try?
tanky.
Do you start climbing down, Cinder?
Yes, once they're all on board, I
Okay.
will climb down, breathing
Relax.
banana breath on Nyx as I'm holding her in the palm of my hand.
Okay, so real quick, Cinder, with your gorilla stats, give me a survival check.
That's wisdom, right?
Yeah. Are they not proficient in survival?
Oh, I don't know.
She will guide the monkey.
No.
You have guidance.
Okay. I'll take that guidance and
D4.
18 total.
And
Nice.
Oh.
Okay. So
And
you
when
want
I
to
get-
go down.
When I get us down to the bottom, I'll gently set her down.
How are you going to get across the chasm, or are you putting her down before that?
Is it a
Oh. We got to
It's
get
rough.
across? I'll jump. I'll hold on to everybody. And in
Everybody
ape, I'll say,
get
hold
there.
on.
Oh no.
But I'm holding Nexus, so
So-
she should have, Nyx. She
Nyx.
should have advantage.
No, Nyx is not a problem. It's the other two.
it's the other two.
15.
Yeah, you guys are
Hold
fine.
on.
Oh wait.
You hold on to him. Fine. Athletics, please, Peter, with your gorilla
My ape?
stats. Mm-hmm.
She sees what
Ape
you're about to do.
me,
She's
ape
like,
me.
guidance.
If you get like a nat 1, I would laugh so much.
20 without guidance.
All right. You are across. What's your
23
strength?
with. Mine is 23.
What is your strength?
23.
Okay, so
I have a total roll of 23, but my strength is also a 23.
that's fine. No, you're fine. You get across. and you settle them gently on the floor.
I forget I'm holding Nyx and I start beating my. No.
Ah!
Do you drop concentration?
No. I'm
You
gonna
stay
stay
in it.
for until I have to. I'm staying a giant ape. I've never been a giant ape.
Okay.
He's like, just enjoying it.
I would like from here. I would like you go towards the cave entrance.
Yep.
Perception checks.
Okay, you want a perception check? Give me a perception check. You don't have advantage.
She has a sentinel shield, so she has advantage on perception.
Okay,
checks.
that's fine.
And she'll guide herself. Oh. That's nice. 18 plus 7. 25. And
What do you do? What are you looking for?
she's, I guess, making sure there's nothing like ready to there's nothing amiss. Like she's kind of keeping an eye out for anything that might be amiss. Maybe think there's something here that's still lingering. Maybe
The
there's traps.
magic here is very unpredictable by the looks of it.
With her keen senses and her attunement to magic, she will tell that from. She's like, the magic here is unstable. I am not entirely sure what's going to happen in there. Is everyone ready?
Okay, let's go see.
All right, guys. As you cross the threshold of the cave, I would like everyone to roll me a D100.
Oh no.
Do I bump my head?
Ooh. That's what the D100 is for, if Sin bumps his head. That's a War Magic Surge. 74.
84.
Okay. 1784. Can you type yours, Peter?
Yeah.
Mine's 84. It's in there.
Oh, it's there. Okay.
It's
Yeah,
the top
let's
one, yeah.
Next has got the lowest, so we'll start with his.
Oh, yeah, I thought mine was going to be the lowest. What?
Okay, roll
He turns
me.
into a rubber chicken.
I'll roll a d4 actually. I will do because it was Nexus. So.
Who's- why are you talking about
Right.
chickens?
So, according to the stream 3, Cinder, I need you to do me a wisdom save.
Oh no.
Oh, with ape stats. That's gonna turn out great. Ah, apparently they're not too bad. Oh, okay, they're bad. 9.
You are under the effects of hold person for now. Okay. 17.
That's the best ape I can do, guys. Sorry.
17 for the next 10 minutes you speak a stranger's unusual voice. The voice is disruptive, but it sounds normal to you. Next we have, well, who was next? It was a 74.
Nick.
I had an 84.
10 in-game minutes. 74. Roll me a d4, Nix.
Why did I pick the weird one?
It's a 4.
4? Okay.
Hmm.
Nexus takes 3d10 damage, which you can roll,
I prefer the damage.
and starts vomiting with the poisoned condition.
Oh no.
Oh, is that
Easy
shit?
done.
You know, this is the
One
poison.
second. I
What
have
is,
killed
what is the
Nexus.
damage?
1 second.
Oh, I hate this.
Oh no.
Kill me now.
Why did my dice decide to roll well? 34 points of damage.
Okay. You put him almost to half health. Well done. Uh,
You're welcome, Nexus.
and lastly, 84. Peter, roll me a d10, please.
Uh-oh.
You all are already affected me.
Okay. Everybody other than Cinder takes 7 points of necrotic damage. Cinder, if you're missing any hit points,
She.
you get all of that back.
I'm
Yes.
I'm at
How
a
much
full.
necrotic?
Okay. Well,
How much?
7. Next. Yeah.
7.
So.
Could you give me control of the ape so I can keep track of his health?
Yeah. 1 second.
I'm giving myself a headache.
There. Oof, didn't have control of it. So as Cinder freezes for only a couple of seconds, Nexus starts vomiting violently. Nyx feels hurt. Larkin feels hurt. A bunch of other things happen. Larkin starts speaking in a different voice. All this happens at once.
Is there a weird gas in this room?
You think you're speaking fine.
Oh, I see.
She looks at him as she clutches her chest. But then she'll go towards Nexus because he's obviously been violently ill. He's going to see if she can help him.
Nexus, are you okay, brother?
What?
Nyx, make sure that
You see that
the...
it only takes a minute. After a minute, when Cinder relaxes, Nexus stops vomiting.
Also stops by. Because she was going to do like a medical examination, but she waits it out.
10.
10.
So, am I held for a whole minute or for how long?
You were held for a whole minute, yeah.
Okay.
But nothing else happens, like, around here.
Okay. By the way, I don't have
Okay.
control of the ape.
You should do. What?
What?
Controlled by Cinder. Are you in the right one?
Is he on the right level? I don't know.
Yeah. So,
'Cause-
yeah.
I have control of Cinder, but I don't have control of the ape.
That's weird.
Even after refreshing?
Yep.
Oh.
Did you give it to Tech?
I gave it to both.
Nope.
Oh, weird.
Okay, I'm sorry then.
Tech is being stubborn. Roll20 hates you. I know.
So we're going into the cave?
Let's
Well, if
see.
we want to prove.
Try to refresh one more time. Let's see if that helps. You are now in the cave. And you all recognize the surroundings now that you take a minute to look at them because you were overwhelmed by the magic happening to you. You recognize this cave. You see the scarred ground.
We fought.
You see scattered weapons. You see a skeleton. A stone skeleton. Well, it looks to be like a statue, but you know it's not.
Not from the start.
From one of your comrades that's stayed here forever.
Oh, man.
Nyx looks at you. Why are you still talking like that?
What do you mean talking like this?
That's that one off. He's still talking like. She's confused, but she's like, "You all remember this place?" She looks at all of them. Maybe not Cinder because Cinder's going, oh, but everyone else that can understand,
Yes, Peter,
Can
the
hear it talk.
token is linked up. I literally assigned it to your character.
Okay, just checking.
So,
I won't have control then, so I will try to keep track of the hit points though.
did you guys recognize?
Yes, you all do. You start having a presence press against your mind.
Has the
Does it
minute
feel like
passed?
Yeah, you are
Yeah,
now
yeah.
removed, yeah.
Does it
And
feel
the
like a familiar presence?
Not really, but you hear, "Let me in."
Who's hissing in my ear?
I'll roar and start beating the ground. And look around and
Would this be a good instance, like, as she Nixa looks, this is like there's no signs of anything else in this lair. So this would Nix feel like this is the right moment to call, oh, hissy face?
You
Or
have no idea.
no intuition? Okay.
We have to find her sister.
Is there anything else of note apart from the
How far is this
remnants
cave?
of battle in this
As-
lair?
Exactly as you see.
The small little cave
Yeah.
that was housed to a great worm.
Small? Have you
That's what I'm
measured
s-
it?
That's what I'm saying. How big is this cave?
Have you
To be
measured
fair,
it?
we don't see it right now.
No, we're not in a cave.
You.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. I forgot to move.
Yeah, we're not in the cave.
That's why you're
so-
not in control, Peter, because I gave you control in the wrong map. I was looking at this map. This is the ground you recognize.
oh, there we go.
I am stupid, everyone.
No, you're not.
So there we go. We found the mystery of why she can control it.
Yay!
So, what, do you know?
I was like, how is this a small cave? Yes, you're fine.
Thank you. Right. Can we see where the other worm is? Whatever it is, Naga.
You can roll perception investigation.
Oh, yes, I will. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we're gonna do like a little bit of a
Oh,
lap
oh,
to make
okay.
sure that we haven't missed anything.
I got 2 13s, so it's only a 14.
Next, we'll also roll.
You don't find anything. You don't find a single crystal.
No presents, no nothing.
Nothing that you see. You don't even. If this was a dragon lair, there's not even any loot left.
Ah.
I feel like I just wasted a nat 20 then.
Oh,
On
you
my
got not 20%.
perception.
You don't see anything.
Yeah.
Nothing. There's plants. There's mushrooms. There's
I'm gonna go stand directly in the middle.
nothing else. There is what I described: the charred ground, the broken weapon, the statue-like corpse.
Can I go stand directly in the
Nix,
middle?
Nix is gonna put on her goggles and she's going to detect magic to see if there's anything beyond what we can see.
Pain.
Pain!
You see, the only thing you see is high above you. Oh no, you wouldn't see that because it's 30 feet. Never mind. I mean, some
Okay.
of the plants have magical properties, but that's about it.
Okay.
Okay, well, shall we call her out?
That presence has continued to press against your mind.
How do we call her out?
I think you just let her in. but-
Release. Summon.
As you start doing that, do me a wisdom save.
Oh! Shoot.
See, that's what I was trying to prepare for.
Wisdom's not my finest. 13.
Okay. So you all see as Larkin starts doing it. The summon, come, Pia. Suddenly he starts seizing up,
Bibbidi bobbidi boo.
and you hear him scream in pain as out of his own skin bursts out the Naga. You are now unconscious.
Well, that's no fun.
We'll do a quick turn order. So please roll initiative.
Do I roll
You
initiative?
roll initiative because you'll be doing death saves.
Whoa! Thank you for that.
Do I roll
should
for
we- wait, should we-
Cinder or the ape?
You roll.
You
for
roll
the
as the ape, yeah.
Anyone want to come
Should we-
help me in the middle of
Where
the...
should we put ourselves on the map?
You are on the map.
Oh, I don't see us.
Bottom
Unless
left.
I'm at the bottom left. Oh yeah, the turn. I think my the image, my profile pictures are up there. I need to move them. Alright, all good.
That's not the correct one.
I'll just roll them here to get myself on there. But I'll hand roll it. Too late to back out of that one.
Who just messed my thing?
It's not bad.
Did you delete my character?
Me? No.
My character deleted it, so...
I didn't read your character.
No, it must have been me. I was trying to edit the roll. But I think it went off the initiative order and it deleted my character instead of deleting the initiative order. Sorry.
No, there's two of you.
Ow.
I don't know.
I don't see any of them.
Do you see him now?
No.
He's
I'm
not
refreshing.
with you. He said he wanted to stand in the
Yeah,
middle.
I'm in the middle, over here. Yeah.
Oh. I
I'm going to
see
do another roll.
a brighter new horizon. Now I see him. It's Cinder's best friend. Wait, is that the same Naga he talked to?
Yep.
Okay.
Indeed.
Yay!
Yay!
I'm dying! Yay! Could you change my thing to 9? It's not letting me do it.
Okay, give me a second.
Yeah, I'm just letting you know.
It's not letting me do a bunch of things right now.
Mm,
It's hating on me again.
You too.
Yeah, it's not even letting me have any of the options of right clicking. It's not letting me right click.
Like me ping everyone. Ping everyone!
Stop right clicking then. Because you're not supposed to be allowed to do that.
Really?
Yes.
Oh.
You're breaking my game, Jonathan.
I'm not doing anything. I'm not doing anything.
It's not me.
Done.
Breaking. Okay.
That's it. That's yeah. All right. Has everybody rolled initiative then? You want it to be a 9, yeah?
Yes.
Larkin?
Yes, please.
Okay. Let's start. First, we have the Naga. Speed. 40 feet? Alright. What's the range of their stuff?
We don't want to hurt the Naga, do we? Above table?
No.
The Naga's
Well,
hurting
I'm
us.
dying due to the Naga.
And the Naga's attacking, so.
I appreciate living.
I need. Ooh, 60 feet. Okay, so it'll move a little. The Naga will slither closer to you guys. I believe that's 40 feet, right? 25 feet should be enough.
It said it
Yeah.
had 60 feet.
40 feet movement. But 60 feet range.
Correct.
So, I need Cinder as the ape, Nyx and Nexus into dexterity saving throw.
Eek. I might use a reroll for that one.
Yeah,
19.
I didn't say Larkin.
I know. I'm dying.
He has advantage because he sees it coming.
Nice. That is a 21.
I'm in trouble.
Okay.
Much better.
Cinder, what was your roll?
19.
Yeah, beats it. So let me roll damage real quick. Game is glitching so bad for me, guys. Give me a
Yeah.
second.
It's the Naga's fault. She disrupted everything.
Yeah, she disrupted my whole body.
Your life force.
Okay, so for those of you who saved, what was your which I think was everyone.
We did, yeah. All of us saved it.
So you take 7 points of fire damage and 7 points of radiant damage.
Okay.
Alright, guys, it's an easy 14 damage. You're perfectly fine.
Nexus is resistant to the fire, so he takes 3 fire and 7 radiant. So he takes 10.
Is Nexus still on half health?
Nexus is looking
Oh, no.
as you see this 10 feet by 10 feet square of radiance light and fire slam down on top of you.
Okay. So sorry, it was half fire, half radiant, right? Fire
Yes,
and
7 fire, 7 radiant.
with that
Already
she's
half.
alright, so she'll activate as she sees it coming, she will this is basically absorb elements. And she takes like a
Yeah.
swig of a brew.
The
And
7
half that.
each is already split in half, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was 14 and 15. I already
Okay.
have it, as you guys
So
say.
it would just be a little bit less.
That is their turn. Next.
Next. You're pretty far looking. So first of all, Nyx will after recovering from the attack, she'll look at everyone else and she's going to again focus on Dylan, and even wow, forgot his name. I'm thinking of one
Johan.
second.
Johan.
Johan. Thank you. And she pictures him like standing with her, and she's then going to turn to Cinder and not Lorcan, to Nexus. Sorry, Lorcan, I'll get to you in a minute. And using that and the connection she's made with Cinder, because there's some Fey influence,
You
she's
do
gonna cast
remember
Bless.
that the magic here is very chaotic, yes?
Yes, but she's gonna have to take a risk, so she's gonna cast Bless on
Okay.
the three of us.
Are you going to say anything to the Naga?
She goes, "Your sister's not here. What do you want?"
Okay, roll me a D100. You can cast your bliss. Let's see what else happens.
We explode. 82.
You can take 1 additional action immediately.
Damn.
I love that. That actually risk it for the
Yeah.
biscuit sometimes, you know? So, you can get this is gonna be risky though. But she's gonna move her full movement, so it should be about there, alright? 30. ish. The edge. And then she's going to glare at the Naga. But that's enough. And she's going to then bonus action. Again, risking it a lot here. But bonus action, she's going to whisper. You're going to hear this, Lorcan. She's like, wake up, Lorcan. We need you. Healing word. And I'm going to roll
Year
some
100.
Oh no.
D100s and some health.
If I
No,
have
she
zero
couldn't
health,
do anything else. That's a 30. 100.
You teleport up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space of your choice that you can see.
Is that so she doesn't heal?
No, she still heals.
This is
It's
a bonus.
additional.
Alright.
So she will use that potential to teleport right next to you, Nexus. Sorry,
Lorcan.
Lorcan. I'm getting you both mixed up today. It's this cave! It's confusing her. Yes, Lorcan. So she bamps next to you as you hear her words and you feel that healing
How
aura.
much
So I'm gonna.
healing?
So it will be the usual. So 1d4 plus 5. But Alchemist. 1 second. Alchemist Savant. So when she uses her Alchemist supplies as a spellcasting focus, you gain +5 bonus to the roll of the spell. So an additional 5 to that, so it's 11
So
points
11
of healing.
healing. It literally did it when you did it.
11 healing is fine.
Hmm. I wasn't looking at the roll, but thank you, D&D Beyond. Well done.
And with
Alright,
your
so
action?
Additional action. Additional action. For their additional action. She doesn't want to keep casting magic. She will pull out her crossbow. Her gnomish crossbow.
You're gonna
And
attack the
take-
dagger.
and hold it in case it attacks us again after what she just said.
Okay.
So she'll hold it.
You
She'll like
said
bamf next to
your
you, Keel.
sister isn't here. What do you want?
Yep.
So tell us what you want. She keeps attacking. She will shoot you.
Okay,
She pulls up
so
the
she
crossbow.
replies to you. You.
You what?
Sorry, you're hissing. It's hard to understand. It cut you
You
out.
hide her.
Oh wait, I'm asleep.
You're back. You're back.
Yeah, I know.
Did she say we hide her?
Yes.
She goes, where am I hiding her? It's not in my bag. She pulls up the bag. There's nothing here. I guess that's the end of her interaction. She's trying to convince her. that
Did
this
you
is
say? What did you say? Look
Have a
around.
look around.
Roll me persuasion.
Oh, okay. Because my
Can it be with-
It would be with advantage because Nix has been saying. the
Nix
same
is trying to back. Yeah.
Because my persuasion was really gonna work.
I don't know.
With advantage, that's actually quite good. It's a for me. Persuasion. That's a 19, straight 19. There's no mods.
That's pretty good.
Okay.
Okay. she'll think about it.
Look at you. Depends what it is. They look at you and stop and look around. And you see their eyes glow. And then it settles. You're not in initiative. You can do stuff.
I'm healing with second wind.
We're out of initiative?
Yeah, unless you're gonna hit her. Are you gonna hit her?
Oh, he's a monkey.
I'm healing.
Well,
You're the
I
director.
had this awesome plan. Now I can't do it. I'm disappointed.
I'm sorry. You know that the point of this wasn't to fight her. But
What I
He's,
roll?
he's an ape. He doesn't know any better. So, but Nix will
yeah,
call
so
out.
I'll keep
Stand
you in
down,
initiative
Cinder.
for now. I'll keep you in initiative for now. In that case, her eyes glowed and you see her posture relax. Cinder, what do you do?
I'm going to charge forward to the edge and leap, which gives me an extra 20 feet.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to land right in front of her, go, and I'm going to grab her and lick her.
Gonna
That's
die.
Well, that's not an attack, technically.
No.
It's a ape kiss.
Yeah.
Manhandle.
She doesn't seem to mind.
Just big banana tongue going.
I like you.
My original plan was to leap in the air and come down on top with both fists, but
You see that she relaxes and slithers away from your grasp. Then why you bring me here?
To show you. You're the one that
To
was
show
just
you-
in our heads.
This place is cursed.
Is it? Ow.
By the dragon that died in it. But you are right. My sister is not here.
So where could she be?
I will continue my thirst.
I know. If you need a drink, just let us know.
I said thirst.
Let's see.
is she really getting a drink?
It's thirsty work to be a Naga and speak like that.
But this world will feel my wrath for what happened to her.
Yes, you do have a voice.
Do me a charisma save.
Yeah, gladly. Hey, she's this hissy one.
Charisma.
Charismatic.
What was
If
it?
Nick says
I got a
ape
5.
smash, I'm going to town.
You just see Lorcan disappear out of thin air.
She vanished here.
You're vanished for a minute.
What? Where
Ah!
am I going to?
To a
She goes.
to
Go ahead.
actually for the first 6 seconds you appear in this beautiful hall of where everything is enormous, but then you look at yourself and you realize no, everything is my size.
Oh.
And there are a multitude of creatures that you've never seen before.
So,
But you feel home. Ha! You have joined us, brother!
Nexus?
No.
Nexus. Sorry.
Instead of Nexus,
It's
you
giant
see...
Nexus.
No.
I'm just letting Nix know that if that was an act of aggression, just give
Ape
the
smash?
order and
Yeah,
say
no.
ape smash.
It's not heard you. She was ignoring that. She's not gonna say ape smash. Yeah.
1 second, let me describe to him who he sees. It doesn't let me, does it? Of course not. 1 second,
Nope.
guys. What?
We're not gonna miss
Why
these
do you
roll
hate
20.
so? Why do you hate me so much? Please let it work this time.
No.
Maybe.
That's who you see.
Ha ha!
And they are? Or do I recognize who they are?
They are family.
They are family?
We
They've got
are
pointy ears.
family.
Yeah, and you look down
We
and
got our giants with it.
you don't have scales.
What?
They look.
Does he look? Does he look like a handsome devil, like they do?
No, he looks.
No.
Is there a mirror?
Yeah, there's a reflective surface.
I need to look at the mirror.
Okay.
Or the reflective surface. The puddle. I don't know. That blue one's not the nicest looking. Green one.
You see, if it shows.
There you go. You can do it.
You can do it. Roll 20. Stand by.
And by every time, it's ridiculous.
Well, to be fair, we weren't expecting this bit.
No, it's not. That is true. But you
The
see.
hell is that up there? That's me? I know as that?
That he just said it.
A what?
Fire giant.
I am a fire giant suddenly?
Yes.
The hell?
Welcome back to Jotunheim.
So basically, you're hot now.
We'll be back to you in a second. What
Does
do you
that-
do?
Question,
Okay.
does that give a bonus to his hotness score?
So are we back to where?
Where
You
you guys
banished
are?
her?
Yes.
Okay.
He got back. He disappeared into thin air.
I'm loping back and forth, side to side, beating the ground and roaring in the Naga's face because Lorcan disappeared. Spittle
Cheers.
just spraying out.
But very calmly, she'd be like, "What did you do to him? Bring him back."
And because he was very quick, you return.
As a normal person?
As yourself.
Oh,
But you
that's a
feel
fire giant. Let's
strangely
go.
out of place.
The hell was that? That was trippy.
Loken, are you okay? As you pop back in.
Feel his head, see if he's got
You
a
still
temperature.
have your hands on fire, but they are slowly returning to
I
scales.
was on fire.
She
There's a
blinks
glint
that
in his
away.
eye.
I don't know. I liked it.
You see that his new weapon, his morning staff, which had adjusted to his size, is once again enormous. Only when he grabs it again does it readjust.
That pissed me off.
The Naga turns. Thank you for proving to me this was the waste of time. She disappears.
She'll
He's going
Like-
to see that lovely snake again.
good riddance to bad rubbish, and she'll go over to Lorcan and Lorcan, are you okay? Where did she send you?
I don't know. I was a very tall person. No. I was a normal sized person. I have no idea. Wait, they
Okay.
said something about Yonan wine.
Yonan wine.
It's very
She goes,
strange.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
Ah, okay.
Stop it.
That's fine.
I think we
Oh, I
should.
have heard of that. No.
Jotunheim? You know it. You felt like you were home, but you've never heard it. No.
Comfortable there, though. Anyway.
I think we're good here, right? I think we should head back.
Oh, yes, there's a time limit, isn't there?
Mm-hmm.
Roll me a d4.
Me?
Lol.
Oh,
Oh no. How many hours were you fighting the Naga? Was it 1 minute? Was it 4 hours?
Okay, you feel like it's only been half an hour since those last two.
Feel and know is completely different.
Two different things. Yeah.
Yes, you
exactly.
feel like since you found Cinder, it's only been about half an hour.
Well, let's not push that, shall we?
Mhm.
Well, there's nothing here, and it's all gone, which is all sorted, I think.
Do either one of you speak with animals?
She can message you.
Nix, whilst we're here, that demon cure, do we have to give that to Johan?
What cure?
The one that Cinder was working on, isn't it?
Ah.
No.
Didn't
That
they
was what
say
she-
that only the sands in
She-
the
I
wastelands
think
can cure you?
I think he's talking about like what Nyx was trying to like synthesize, but we didn't need it in the end because of the sands of.
No, it was the one that Cinder was trying to figure out, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But he needs to tell people, no?
No, only the sands will cure you permanently. Only the sands of the wastelands will cure you permanently. You were told this.
Everything else.
And you cannot remove it. But if you remove them from the wastelands, they lose their power.
Oh, that's just unfortunate.
The sands. Yeah.
You can try to get that information to
Yeah,
Johan.
like to tell him to send all the ill people there. Does that work?
Yes.
Can we take blood?
But, how would you do that?
Ah, good question.
How would you contact Johan?
I don't think we should do it here.
Nyx can in a way, but yeah, not here.
Nix, do you message Cinder?
Because
Cinder,
message he
you're
can
allowed
message
to
back.
reply. And she'll understand you.
But before she does that, she's gonna gesture for the ape to like follow her out of the cave because of the magical surges that happen.
So you leave the cave once again.
And she'll message him.
Ah!
It's like, Cinder, we're gonna head back now, okay? Are you okay?
I'll hold out my hand for you to climb up on.
Okay.
You can reply with message. And she'll understand.
But I think he's like that. Also
Ignite Cinder!
Okay.
Just like, okay. What is okay, sorry, Mr. Ape. We need to go.
We all climb on, I'm guessing.
Yeah, you climb on. When you get out of the cave, what do you do?
I go where Nyx points.
No.
Points back where we came from. Across the
Okay, give
European.
me Cinder, give me an 8 athletics check, please.
she'll pat him on the head. Okay, so you can do it. Got him.
Inspiration. No.
Me one.
25.
Ah. You jump again the chasm, no problems. Deck saves, everybody. Except
Oh,
Nyx.
dear, I forgot about that.
Except who?
Nyx, because
Except Nyx.
Nyx is being grabbed by you.
15.
17.
No, not you.
Oh.
Ooh.
You're the ape jumping.
What was yours?
Me, 15.
Okay. I will use a DM reroll
Oh.
for next.
I was gonna say you don't have to, depending on the DC. Because I can give him a +5. If she
You
sees
can?
he's like
Okay.
Yeah, she'll give him a plus. She's like, it's like Cinder, grab him real quick, like to make sure that he makes sure Nexus is not sliding off mid jump. So yeah, +5 for that.
That's
Flash
fine.
events proficiency.
Yeah, everyone's fine then. Cinder, do you climb back up then?
If that's where Nyx is pointing.
Mm-hmm.
Alright, you climb
Yeah,
back
he's with
up,
Nyx
no
this morning.
problem. Cinder, give me a... Nyx, give me a survival check. Because Nyx is
Survival.
driving.
Oh, nice. 21.
I just heard a gun go off.
Okay. And
Was that,
roll me a d4.
is that what that was, Peter?
You heard that?
Yeah.
What was it?
It was a gun going off.
Damn.
Nice.
3.
3. Okay. You are certain as you reach the edge of this mirror place that you feel fairly certain that 2 more hours have gone by. So you've been here a total of 4.5 hours.
I don't really want to stay here any longer, though.
Should I
Nyx,
change
what-
back
you
to my
wanted do
form?
something. Yeah, you would have. By the time you reach the top, you would definitely.
Yeah, I would have worn off.
Okay.
I think. No, Nyx was contemplating taking
The magic
samples.
felt crazy here, so this would have
Hmm.
been the 2 hours would have been when you crossed the mirror, right? That's when you would have felt the 2 hours.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I'm not held anymore.
So Nyx, as we're about to go through, she has a thought. If they're gonna go look for the astral dragon, and these like the amethyst and the sapphire were his children, does he assume that the bones out here are?
you knew they
Those
were
two dragons?
adopted. They had been brought over from Kryn.
Mm-hmm. She has no idea what a crin is. She thinks maybe if we're gonna go find him, he might like maybe something to remember them by. And she might take like a bone, not like to like experiment or anything, but just like as a memento for the
Yeah,
dragon. If they ever find him.
No. Are you gonna tell us that?
Yeah, she'll let you all know. She's like,
I don't think you should touch the grave.
you don't think I just thought it'd be a nice thing to present to the dragon if we ever find him.
He knows, though. You don't think he's not been back here to see it even. I don't think that would be a good idea. That's like someone showing up with your child's bone in your hand.
I guess you're right. Like I said, if you think of it that way.
Yeah.
But I'll make a note of it. She'll make a note of that in the journal. But she won't disturb the rest.
So, yeah.
Alright, so you cross to a less chaotic. I need everybody to do me con saves again.
Oh, because of the nasty.
Stench.
Oh, great. Con saves. Yay.
Yay.
Hey, yeah, not too bad. 21.
17.
Nexus has got the poison condition again.
20. 30, 20.
Using it on got advantage on. Oh yeah, this is a poison thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I can have got advantage anyway.
Yeah, you would. Cinder, what's your
17.
Yeah, you're fine. And Nix was yours.
30, 20.
Okay.
What was the Nexus miserably fail?
11, yeah.
Shall we?
Yeah, you all resist except for Nexus. There's like.
I'm gonna hold on to Cinder.
You all hold on to each other, yes or no?
Yes.
Rope. Yeah, rope. Mandatory rope. And hold each other.
Who's leading?
Next,
Roll me
and
survival.
she will enhance
Are you
abilities.
contacting Johan
She'll do that
when they
just
get back?
before.
Okay.
We need to get
Can we do
close.
it?
We need to get close to Miss Boss Lady, who's going to leave us behind. We need to be in her vicinity in case she decides to leave. But only when we're like close to her will she attempt to contact Johan.
Can we do it?
So enhance abilities.
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
nat 20.
Mm.
Yeah, nat 20 for 24.
Well done. Roll me a d4.
4. Wow, what running a lot of 4s though. Huh.
Okay. Okay. So by the time you reach her, she goes, it's been
Okay.
6 hours, 32 minutes, and 43 seconds.
She goes, as promised, Akape. I just need a moment before we go.
Sure. Hurry up.
Alright.
Let's see how it's any longer than 5 minutes. You can't smell this anyway. Nexus is the one suffering.
Dex is like, oh, I feel terrible. I don't know what it was, but after I puked, I feel terrible.
Does anybody have any bananas?
What?
You say that, Nyx is like,
Bananas there. Is there any fruit around here?
no. There was fruit. You didn't see bananas specifically, but there were fruit. There was fruit in the inside the mirror one. Not in this area. In this area, everything is dying.
What's dead here? Might I ask?
Know as much as you. When a dragon dies, especially a powerful one, strange things happen to the land. When
Wait.
2 dragons die, it's even worse.
What's in there? It's good. Here, it's deadly.
Do you even know what amethyst dragons are known for?
You know.
Clearly.
What?
Like, Ravon is
Portals.
dying to put this woman in her place. So Nyx doesn't know what happens with Amethyst Dragons. And they're like,
Amethyst dragons are known for portals.
Yes. Portals. Things not being what they seem. Breaching time, space, life, and death.
And what about the other one?
I haven't been instructed to be your teacher. I'm here to teleport you back.
Command. No, I'm kidding.
You don't know.
please.
Clearly.
So,
I'm
so-
sorry to interrupt.
You can give me
DM,
a persuasion. Or intimidation, whatever you prefer. Yeah?
my OCD is killing me right now. Could you fix my token so it's not stretched out?
Is your token stretched out? Oh, yes, it is. I'm so sorry.
Intimidation.
I've been looking at it for like 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, I can resist. I can resist. I can resist.
I'm so sorry. Just let me know next time.
Just
so you should have just said
Everything
so.
is-
so you don't know.
Okay, so the thing is, so while this is all happening, Nyx is going to, because it's not exactly how augury works, right? Augury, you ask a question, and then they give you science. Or
You
she's-
can phrase it as a question. Did you know that?
That's what she was. I was hoping that she could do that. Something
Then
like that.
she'll
Is-
just say yes or no.
But then they would know.
What is?
That's what she was. So she will voice the question as she arranges her alchemy regents and nuts and bolts as her I guess her way of doing augury in the right patterns. She'll ask Johan. She'll focus on Johan. She goes, did you know that was the only way to permanently cure someone with the sands? And
With
just
this-
so that it can go yes.
With the sound.
with the sands.
Of the wasteland.
I'm such a nice DM. I should have just gone. Yes, I did. The answer is no. They cure permanently. Fantastic.
But they can't bring it
She didn't say that.
out.
Well, it's a question, so I can't tell
Alright.
what to do.
Alright, well.
You could have still said, even though you can't bring it out, there's ways, but you
It's
didn't
fine.
figure it out, so I'm not helping you or giving you that.
My dirty 20.
Yes, she
Question.
goes. Sapphire dragons were psionic creatures that control force.
You did know.
They like labyrinths and pulsing.
No, aren't you a clever one?
They hate everything about the far realm, but they get affected by it the most.
The far realm?
A terrible place you want to know nothing of.
Will we meet it on our journey?
If you're unlucky, but you are likely to meet some of its denizens.
Well, we tend to be an unlucky group, unfortunately.
You are bound to meet its denizens, but finding the far realm itself, I don't wish to put it upon anyone, even you. Are you done?
Yes, I am. Are we all finished? Nexus, are you done puking?
Oh, Nix, are we finished?
I think so. You can go.
Home, James.
So, as you say that, she once again waves her hands. This time, no runes glow, no stone moves, but you are back in that room at the very, very bottom of the city. And she smiles. Take the time you need to get back up. And she flicks her fingers and she disappears.
We need to get up. Why? Are we feeling sick?
You are at the bottom in like a dungeon almost of this place.
So she's being
We need to climb up.
You had walked half an hour downstairs. Now you have to go upstairs half an hour.
Well, how about we just sleep there because I'm very sore.
Oh,
Loki,
I'm sorry.
you
Did
can-
you need healing?
Not currently, no. I'm fine.
With that, we're gonna go on our intermission before we come back for the last half.
Hey, a scheduled intermission this time.
Yes.
Yeah, not the tech issue intermission.
So thank everyone so far for being with us. We'll be right back.
I see you all in a minute.
Hello! Welcome back. It was a quick intermission. We are going to the second half of the last episode of the Legends of Methis. They've gone to the Isle of Knot, where nobody else can go. And they've released the wrath of the serpent god
In a good way.
in a
Can
good
we just
way
state?
upon the world. However, she said nothing about closing the hole she created and the demon she brought. So we'll see.
That's a good point. We didn't ask that bit.
No, you didn't. And you didn't mention it. She didn't care.
Completely forgot about that.
She even threatened that the world would feel the wrath for what happened. So anyway, you guys make your way half an hour going up the stairs. It is annoyingly long, the path. But as you reach the top, Dylan greets you once again. The queen awaits you.
Can I get a drink first?
Flicks the hand and the water comes to you.
Oh, thank you.
Nexus is like, he flicks it again. That's that. You need to teach me
Is
that.
he
trick.
disappointed? Is he disappointed it's actually water and not like a drink?
100%. He tasted it. I know I've just been sick, but like, come on, alcohol. Dylan
You're not
just
drinking
doesn't
alcohol, right? Yeah.
reply.
He's sick twice. No. We are ready, I believe.
Cinder is pulling bugs out of his hair and eating them.
You don't have bugs in your hair anymore.
Oh, it's what apes do, okay?
He leads you to the throne room once again. And the same three women are there. The queen, the princess, and their advisor. That one. The advisor. The queen. Did it show?
Yeah.
Is it showing?
It's showing it.
It's working, guys! And the princess. Beautiful.
It's so sick, yeah.
And also, another one is there.
Oh my
Finishing
gosh, all
whispering
these
something to the
windows.
queen
Oh, it's Kipper.
before
one,
the
yeah.
queen dismisses them. And they disappear once again.
So it's just the queen.
The queen and the advisor and the princess. So, I hear you've banished the serpent queens.
I'm saying Barney.
Believe me,
Yeah,
there will be stronger wards to prevent her interference.
Ah, then good. The only thing is, will there still be a war?
Yes. Without her guidance, it might be more easily won. But the war, I doubt, shall be stopped.
She did promise her wrath will be still visited upon the world for what happened. Unfortunately.
If it was just her wrath destroying this world, we could easily vanquish it. But it is you, the people. She only incites it. So, have you made your decision? Are you to return and forget all that you know about us?
Star
And
trekking across the
everything connected
universe.
that led you here? Or shall you join those who ventured to search for our protector?
She licks looks
Is
at
there a
the
third option?
rest.
No.
Oh.
No.
I mean, there
I-
is, actually. Death.
Oh, delightful.
I was afraid she would say that. Yeah, Your Grace. I think I speak for everyone here, and I think it's best that we address the bigger picture and we look for your great protector and try to get them to come back.
Those of you who wish to do this, step forward.
Well, I don't want to forget anything.
You're muted, Peter.
Quick question above table.
Mm-hmm.
Are we gonna be like beamed away? Cause I still gotta see the tailor.
No.
Okay,
Next, we'll take a step forward.
I'll step forward.
Hands
Next,
behind
it'll
our
take a
back.
step forward.
Oh, I guess I'm just in for
It's
that.
like we're in Star Wars.
Step forward.
Fantastic. Phaedra, please guide them to where the ship is.
Yes. Just yes.
Guide them to where the ship is.
Shit.
Inform them of what they should be looking for. I have other business to attend to. And as she waves her hand, you all feel yourselves pushed out the door, and the doors close.
Oh.
And a few seconds later, Phaedra appears outside.
Bye,
the door.
princess.
Thank you. I was thinking to ask.
Wow.
It's like,
Oh, I'm so sorry. I shall show you to the ship now.
really? What's it like?
Do you have anything you need to retrieve from your rooms?
He needs to go to the tailor.
He needs.
Taylor?
He doesn't need it, but he
I
will
do.
like an outfit.
Oh,
See,
Who
I
did
got
you
this
speak
outfit
to
when I
about
was in
this
terrible
matter?
condition.
who did you speak to about this matter?
Uh-oh.
Tailor?
Dylan.
Yeah,
You
the
see that
bald-looking person.
She goes quiet for a second. They'll meet us at the ship.
Okay, brilliant.
Please follow.
Glad you.
Do we need to take any supplies with us, or is the ship fully
All will be
stocked?
provided. But trust me, you don't need much food where you're going.
That is not creepy at all.
Time doesn't
Okay.
pass. You don't
Larkin.
feel hungry or thirsty. Do not worry, we are not threatening you.
We can't get hungry or thirsty?
Yes. Once you're in the astral sea, time and needs vary.
Can you get drunk?
You can.
How long does it last?
Nix is like, he's asking all the wrong questions.
Time doesn't pass for the material. You can still count it magically.
Drunkenness is magical? What?
No. It is not. But your body doesn't age, doesn't suffer those usual effects.
So
So-
alcohol's fine.
It eventually runs out. Perhaps it is a good way to measure how long time passes.
So there'll be a time when we don't need it.
When we come
A
back,
very, very long time.
how much time will have passed when we come back? For every
That
day.
is up to you. Every wild space, time passes different. No time passes at all in the astral sea. Yet time continues to go. So you may be for 120 days in the astral sea, but in this wild space there might have been 100 years. There might have been only 5 days. It varies. There is no way of knowing it.
I'm glad that we said bye to our parents when we had the chance.
I'd like
You'll
to say bye to his
find-
mother.
You will find that those you leave behind here will want for nothing of their lives. It is a small gesture we do to those who venture to look for the protector. We protect those they cared about. She starts leading you out of the city and back into the wastelands. But the other way from where you came from.
Yeah, yeah. Into the sands? Or...
Yes. Dellen meets you there when she finally stops. Are you in the map? Please tell me you are.
We're not in the map.
You are. No, not your tokens,
Oh,
but
we are,
you are
yeah.
seeing the map. Make
Yeah.
sure you zoom out so that you see the entire map.
I am.
Yeah, I see it.
Do we drag our tokens on?
You can over to this side.
Okay.
Yeah, you can put them around where I'm thinking.
Wow, this map is big if that's the size of my token.
Yes, that's why I want you to put your token so you get the sense of the size.
Whoa.
She leads you here. Dellen hands you a rose that you asked for. Cinder.
Thank you. Oh, they're beautiful. Look how the vestments sparkle with the light of stars.
We always give those brave enough to venture like this a token of our appreciation. You already have a weapon worthy of the challenge you are about to face.
Why, thank you. I think I collected that myself, Bill. But thank you.
That doesn't mean you don't get any. Why is it gone? I think. 1 second. Here. To help you.
Oh no.
She hands Nyx what looks to be a dragon tooth.
Oh.
Enormous, but turned into a drinking horn. I believe you'll make use of this. You can add a stirring dragon vessel to your inventory.
What
Give links set up.
does that do?
Thank you.
As you reach certain levels, it might become awakened
Oh.
and ascended.
It'll change, yeah.
To you, some blood of our protector. Cinder, you may add a blood well vial +3 to your inventory. To you, she points to Nexus. It places on him a necklace with a massive dragon scale. This will help you in your journey. For those of you who are curious, he got a stirring scaled ornament. You can search it.
Will it?
You can literally search it on your inventory and have a look at what these things do.
They're not on mine.
I'll just. I'll put mine
On
up
manage
on-
your inventory, you can look at the items.
I'll put Nick's
And
stuff.
to you, she points at Lorcan.
Oh no.
It is not something I could carry easily, so bear with me.
Ah.
And she gestures. You can add a plate armor of adamantine.
Ooh.
Yeah, adamantine. Yeah. And
Nyx
no,
is
actually, wait.
ice.
It is adamantine?
Go what?
Yes, adamantine. Plate.
My team plate.
Correct. You use a splint anyway. So.
Oh, I like my magic item.
I thought you would. See?
Got the +3 then.
The Bloodwell vial, yeah. And she says to you that will fit whatever size you grow to be.
What do you mean by when I get large? You mean?
Large, huge, whatever you end up being.
Oh,
It was something we recovered from the tomb where you found the weapon
oh,
a long time ago.
what? Okay,
Son
son.
of the Allfather.
Ah,
None of you have ever heard of that.
Mm-mm.
That will make sense to you one day.
will it?
Now let me present to you. Peter, make sure that on the stream the map is zoomed out. Let me present to you Anglesia. And she waves her hand, and there's a gust, an incredibly powerful gust of wind that blows an entire mountain of sand away. And you see, and this is to scale,
To scale.
Whoa.
How?
a ship, an airship in the shape of a damselfly.
How do you mean to scale?
That means it's that big compared to you.
us. That's how big it is compared to
I
us.
need to just so I can see how. So I sit on the back of it like that. Okay. Oh.
As please, let me show you how it works.
Please.
She guides you in, and we're gonna move you.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh wow.
It has 3 floors. Please place yourselves wherever you want to be. With the exception of Nyx, please come to this area. Phaedra, whilst the others explore the ship, Phaedra will take you to here, Nyx.
Oh, yeah.
This blue area is that on
Oh,
top down?
I ended
No,
up
the
going
blue
with
area
Nixa.
is outside. So it's an area that is not you can't
Also
be
lots of
on.
ghosts.
Yeah.
Ah. Well, that's a bit.
So-
Where do these stairs lead then?
These 2 stairs lead to these 2 hatches.
Okay. So you have to go through the hatch to get to. Okay.
Yes. At the end of the day, this is all covered, right?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Interesting.
So you can explore the ship. Nyx, have you put yourself there? Beautiful.
This is my bunk.
For those of
I get the double
you,
bed.
you get to see it. This is your ship from the outside. This is your ship on the inside. So, Phaedra goes, you seem to be the one that will be guiding them on this journey.
He nods. And she goes, well, I would say try. It's more accurate.
Tell the others what I have said, then. Our protector is an astral dragon. He should be known throughout the multiverse. But it has not been everywhere. It is impossible. There are certain people, certain places, certain worlds that might know of him. that we know where he's been. The first place I can recommend you
Mm-hmm.
to go is Sigil. If there is
Okay.
any place he could be hiding, it is there. If you find nothing
Sigil.
there, visit one of two worlds, either Kryn or Exandria. And if all else fails, ask wherever you are, wherever you go, for Asteria.
Oh, these are tough choices.
He looks
For
like
they were old
Yes.
friends.
Do we need to be writing notes on these?
If you want.
Nexus.
Wow.
For Asteria.
Mhm.
How do you
The
spell
Asteria.
it? E.
Asteria.
An old friend.
An old friend. Sigil, where he may be hiding.
Oh, Exandria, Chrome.
And two worlds he might visit often. Kryn. Krynn. Or Exandria. EXAND. EXAN.
A-N.
Yes. DR. Exandria. DRIA. Be careful. This vessel, once you are in space, will have breathable air for 120 days. She points at the wall where there is an orb that, for those of you in real world, seems to be a clock. Every time that pointer does 2 full turns, it has been 1 day. Your air will become harmful to you after 120 days. In 120 days, you will have to find a port, a different world, an asteroid city, whatever you may find, to replenish your air supply. Otherwise, in 240 days, you will die to the air of this ship.
Because that's not a lovely thought.
Okay.
Once you are out of the atmosphere, you will be able to walk under the ship for repairs, as if you're walking on top of it. But remember, learn this spell, and she gives you a scroll.
Can we be listening into action?
Yeah, you 100% can listen. Learn this spell, for you do not want to go outside of it, further from your ship, without it.
Spell of space warping, delightful.
Space bubble. Air bubble,
Space
whatever
bubble.
it's called.
Hmm. Okay, she takes it. Okay, sure. Catalog it.
Finally,
That's just in space, right? What if we're on a planet?
I would suggest not going anywhere without it,
Okay.
without making sure that the air is breathable. I unfortunately have no suits that will fit your size for any of the harmful poison. You will have to find them yourself, but there are countless races in the multiverse. You will find a port, and you will be able to purchase these. We have given you supplies for the first 120 days, including 1,000 gold each
Wow, okay.
for doing this.
Okay.
They are already in the chests in your rooms. finally, this chair will be your control. It has to be a spellcaster, so only 2 of you are able to man it.
Yes, well,
You cannot. You're not a spellcaster. You don't have the spellcasting ability.
no. Well, I do like this, but
Only 2 of you can man it. Once you sit on it, you'll and attune to it, you will be able to control it. Hear everything that happens on board. Feel everything the ship feels.
So
However-
that means we have to keep one attunement slot open.
Correct.
Mhm.
You will manage moving this ship other than minor corrections. It is like moving a Navy ship. This damselfly ship can land on earth and water smoothly. It has been enchanted to be able to do so, so you may land on anything you wish. But when you are at super speed of 100 miles, I think it's, let me double check that real quick actually before I say stupid stuff. Super speed on Spelljammer vessel is, of course that part is not here. Give me 1 second, guys. My brain farted and I don't want to give you the wrong information.
Astounding.
When you are at the super speed of,
1 million miles per day? 100 million.
yes, of 4 million miles per hour, you can do minor corrections as you sense that is needed. However, if you come across anything big enough to have its own air pocket, the ship will automatically slow down. This could be another ship, and be mindful of those. This could be a planet. Do not enter the wild space of a planet without knowing what lies beyond it. Or it could be a creature large enough. There is a multitude of dangers where you are going, in the wild space and in the astral sea. You will know when you are there, for you will feel time and space differ, and you will see incredible creatures. You'll be able to fish. Fishing equipment has been provided. But be mindful. Many sail the wild space and astral plane. You will be attacked, without a doubt. There are weapons on the ship. There is 1 ballista. And 1 mangonel, active and in good shape. You will need 3 to man either one. Work accordingly. If you need, recruit more to your cause. I will now pass my attunement to you. Be mindful that this is the last ship we have of our initial journey here. Any others will be provided and made by Delin after studying ours. This was my ship. The ship that brought the Queen here. Treated kindly. Nix, you may add a spell jamming helm to your inventory, and all of you will add an extra to your character sheets. When you go in extras, there will be an option for vehicle. You will add a damsel fly ship. All of you, because you will potentially all need to do things with it. Extra is on your list where you have features and traits, you have actions, features, extras, add an extra vehicle, damsel fly ship.
Down it's there. Wow. Okay. Nice.
So you can look at the stats of your ship, how it works. You'll be able to figure all that out.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Adds also your spelljammer helm. Spelljamming helm. It's called a spelljamming helm to your inventory. Have you added it?
Mm-hmm.
Have you attuned it?
Should I add one too?
You can, yes. It will be passed to you sometimes as well.
How do I find that?
On your inventory.
Yeah, I'm on my inventory, but
Search, like, add the magic item. It's a magic item.
oh,
Yeah,
okay.
just put spelljamming helm.
Spelljamming helm. She gestures for you to sit on the chair.
She seems a bit tentative at first, but she nods and sits on the chair. A little nervous.
As you sit on the chair, she touches your forehead and all your body feels like pins and needles. But suddenly, your awareness is bigger. You can feel where everyone else in the ship is. You can hear what everyone else in the ship is saying. You know everything that is happening to the ship, in the ship, and around the ship.
Can the person flying the ship speak and speak
Yes.
to the entire ship?
It is like maintaining concentration. They can even use spells, etc. They just can't leave the chair whilst commanding.
Mm.
Remember to take breaks.
How often?
It's kind of like maintaining like a spell. Like after 8 hours of maintaining concentration on the spell is exhausting. You'll take
Okay.
levels of exhaustion if you do more than 8 hours without a break.
Okay. Did Cinder and Lorcan say they were like in the room as well?
They wanted to hear, yeah.
Yeah, oh god. But yeah, Nyx is just gonna flick through all the areas of the ship in her mind. Just kind of testing that connection.
Yes.
She's gonna go top side. She's gonna go to different parts of the ship. She's gonna go deeper into it. Feel like its connection, like to see if she can like move it if she wanted to, and she kind of gets the feeling that she could command it to move
Mm-hmm.
if she wanted.
Remember, once you are connected to this ship, you command it to fly. But once you are in the astral sea, you don't need to command it. You don't need to know where you're going. It will come to you.
I don't understand
just-
that one.
Do I just think
The
it?
astral sea doesn't just have favorable gravity to everything that's in it. The astral sea it fits what you wish. The smarter you are, the faster you travel. The more you want something, the quicker it'll come to you.
So it is the power of the mind then. You
The more
will it
you-
so.
Fear something, the quicker it'll come to you too.
So it's emotionally driven.
It is with the powers of the mind.
It's the like actuality then, like the kind of you think of it and it kind of causes it to be drawn like a magnet, right?
Correct. Instead of it being drawn to you, you are drawn to them. That is how they fly.
Does it have an
Okay.
autopilot setting?
Once you are at super speed, it will automatically course correct
Super speed.
of 4 billion miles per hour.
What's that? Mach 40? No.
Kilometer calculations going on here.
Someone was going to ask the question. What was it going to be?
6,433,376 kilometers per
I
hour.
was gonna say, can we not like do it in like flying conversion, like math? But no, that's fine.
You want what? What do you want?
Speed of sound, like conversion.
Oh, I have no idea.
All right, it's fine. We'll figure it out eventually.
You can do that conversion in your own time. The ship is not sent. This is not a living ship.
No.
Yeah, this is not a living ship. This is a different kind of ship. This is metal. Like the exterior is all metallic.
It's mental. It's been made. Yeah.
There are living ships. This is not the case for yours. Its name, as I've shown to you, I believe, right? You have it now alongside your hot air balloon in your vehicles, in your handout. You have Anglesia, so you can see it what it looks like from the outside. And this will be your inside. Any more questions?
No. At the moment, no.
Thank
Oh,
you.
be careful if you ever fall out of the ship.
Ah.
If you fall out of the ship in the wild space of the astral sea, gravity works towards the center, a line in the center of the ship. If you fall along that line, you'll be moving back and forwards along it. But if you fall beyond it, too far out of the ship, you'll continue falling until you can't be retrieved.
We can't even fly the ship closer.
You can fly the ship closer, but not you closer to it. Be mindful of this. Many have been lost in the wild space. This only happens in the wild space. In the astral sea, it is much easier to navigate.
I'm not getting off the ship when we're in space.
The difference between the wild space and the astral sea is the systems. The planets closer to each other in the same solar system, or dual solar systems, dual star systems, triple star systems, whatever you find, they'll be unraveled in this pocket of space. That is the wild space. Once you go beyond it to the sea, which you'll see like a nebula in the distance, you'll be safer from those dangers. But that is where most roam, so you'll be more vulnerable to the creatures in it.
Yeah, that's cute.
I know this seems a lot for those of you who have never traveled. Trust me, you think your world has many, many races. You have seen nothing yet.
My dear, by any chance have you wrote an instruction book?
No,
Oh,
we fled in a hurry. Our people, remember? We have traveled the space for a long time before this. No, we don't have manuals. You'll figure it out as you go.
okay. Thought you could have just wrote one out for us. And so, you know, that's alright. No worries. Thank you then.
Trust me. You'll find it a lot more
Stressful?
pleasant experience finding it out. It is not difficult.
Complete opposite.
Anything else?
Yeah, we appreciate this gift. But before we do go, would it be possible for you to let everyone know that, especially back in Siona and my home, that we're going away, or is that not
As
possible?
I said, those you care for before you
Will be
got
looked
to us
after.
will be looked after.
Oh, I didn't know that was implied that you would say what happened to us. I thought,
I cannot tell them that you have left.
okay.
I cannot show. We cannot show ourselves. They will just be looked at.
Are there gods where we're going?
Yes, many gods' domains, true gods, will be. You'll come across many, many of them. You may also come across dead gods spread across the astral sea. Be mindful of those. A lot of them have been hollowed out and made into spy networks or military settlements.
Installations. Mm-hmm.
Just be careful.
I think we're gonna need more crew.
I'd suggest you get help. Yes.
Now or later?
Try to find the closest port first, then. Recruit.
Where is? Do you know of the closest port or?
A long time ago was I believe the closest port was a enormous metallic ship in the shape of a whale, but that was thousands and thousands of years ago. It's a ship, it would have moved. Just focus on guiding the ship to the closest port, and you will go there.
Just get to the ports.
That's
Don't
better than
die.
GPS.
Don't get lost, or you'll die.
Remember
Don't go
to count
outside
the
or you'll
days.
die.
Don't forget to count the days, or you'll
Always
die.
remember to count the day.
Don't forget the spell bubble spell, or you'll die. Any others?
Nix, count the days or we'll all
Oh,
die.
don't go into the wild spaces, or you'll die.
She points to the door next
Be
to
mindful.
Nix's chair. This one.
Is there a
There's also
calendar?
map here? It automatically refills with clean water once it's been emptied.
How do you empty it?
She shows you how to do it.
Does it have a hole of
Yeah,
death
yeah.
that goes to the outside?
Yes,
Of course it does.
but it's tiny. And for any other needs, there's the bucket.
Is there not a toilet?
Bucket.
Wow, so
That's gonna stink it up.
You see, Nyx is like, I'll work on it. She looks at them
Yeah,
because they're like, ew.
toilet.
She's like, I'll look into it.
Kind of makes sense.
'Cause she's not-
like if
she's
somebody's
not
just
eager
dumping
to-
it out the door, then people
Yeah,
would
she's
get
not eager
poo on
to-
their windshields.
Yeah, she's not eager to use a bucket either, so she'll look into it. Priority 1, make toilet. Fuck it.
Well, Dellen has a few words to say to you. I shall take my leave. I'll wait outside to
Thank
see it fly once more. It's been a pleasure. And you see that she pats gently the side of the ship and the
And
chair
Nyx fills up.
before, and you feel like it recognizes her still, despite the attunement. And she steps out of the ship, and Dellen comes in. You have all been the first to find them without them finding you. We have high hopes. And I'm very
We
proud
have your hope.
of all of you.
Are there any species that are too dangerous to go around?
Try to avoid Githyanki, mind flayers.
Do we know what they are?
Nope.
Is there like a manual of like monstrous creatures that we could refer to?
No, I have never seen them. I've only ever heard the names on their stories. I have never traveled to space myself. I am useless to you. In that
Okay,
matter.
I'm sure on our journeys we'll be able to find repositories of knowledge.
The best I can recommend, go to the closest port. Find someone who knows, who's traveled the space,
That's
and I'm
information.
sure you'll be fine.
Do you have any just sketchbooks or anything that we could just take with us?
No, the only thing I have is a map of the ship, but anyone who's attuned to it knows it better than my sketch.
No, just books.
Blank
writing.
books.
Blank
Oh.
books.
Yes, of course. That is part of the stuff provided in
Oh, brilliant.
rates. He shows you which ones have it. You have like a crate that is just paper.
Good. With leather bounding.
Yeah.
Good, okay. At least we can make our own manual then, I guess.
I wish you luck.
Thank you.
He steps
She
outside.
goes,
Oh, Nyx, yes?
Next, yeah. She goes, I hope that your trust in us is well placed. We will do our best.
I hope so too.
Yes, we will.
And
He gives you a pat on the shoulder.
again, thank you for all the ideas.
You walk outside. They stand watching. What do you do next?
He calls out to the other two. She goes, are we ready?
You hear
Yes,
her
go.
voice as if on speakers. Are you ready?
Like an intercom.
Yeah.
Yeah, are you ready? It's like an
I'm
intercom.
going to the bridge so I can watch her do it.
And you just hear like connected to the
Nexus also goes to the bridge. Does
We're
Larkin?
gonna die.
To see her do it?
Yeah.
You have a little faith. We're gonna die.
All
As
right.
long as I don't get space, I'm fine.
What do you do next?
Well, she was instructed that it was an extension of her, so she just thinks to herself, fly.
And the wings start rattling. You hear the like a helicopter
So annoying.
Yeah.
until it starts to fly. And do you point it up? Do you guide it to fly?
She dive bombs Zella. No, she points it out.
You watch them wave
And-
you goodbye as you lift up
Yeah, she rotates it, yeah.
and up.
Are we going just straight up or forwards?
You're going straight up.
Oh,
Alright.
okay.
You're
So,
going straight up, and the further up you go, the more you see, until you see all of Methis. For the first time, the continent. You had never seen it from that view before.
Is there such thing as a camera?
No.
No, god damn it.
I'll work on that too.
Well, I thought this was a
Their
space
camera.
ship. It should have camera. No.
And it lifts up and up and up, and it takes 40 minutes before you are out of the atmosphere and see what you see in the background of where the map you are on.
Oh.
You see multiple planets, and you see that where you came from, it is just a piece of an asteroid.
Wow.
There are
It gives us
planets.
just
There is a star that they circle around. You are, and the further up you go, you see that you are a tiny piece of an asteroid in the rings of that planet you saw in the night sky from Methis that looked just half, that you never saw more than half. That's because you are part of its rings
Ah.
as you go up and further out. It takes.
Yeah.
Yes.
not gone.
It takes a couple of hours before you can even see that entire planet and those around it.
Over the intercom, he's gonna call out to them.
They're all in your room. They're all in the same room as you.
We're right behind you.
Yeah, she's like right leaning on her. She's like, oh, I need to, I don't need to use them all the time. Okay. It really adds perspective, doesn't it? She kind of does like so the ship tilts so they can have a better view of Methis and the planetary body with it.
And
All right, to the nearest port then.
you continue to fly.
Onwards then. And she
Till
thinks of
this nebula of space where you feel like there's been a slight change in the gravity.
Nix would know there is a change of
Where
gravity.
it said we were past the wild.
No, this is beyond that solar system. But as you're starting nearing that foggy area, that nebula that they warned you about.
It warned us not to go near.
No, they warned you that it was the astral sea. You near it. The more you near it, the less you see from those planets that are now. Those 7 planets with multiple moons are now behind you. It's been a couple of hours, and you are in your wild space, close to the end of her 8 hours. You finally reach the astral sea.
Oh.
You find that it's a relatively small wild space. You are going at super speed, okay?
Yeah.
Once you reached outside of the atmosphere, you're going at super speed. So it has still been like 7.5 hours, so sorry, let me focus real quick on counting. About 50 million miles. No, 30 million miles. You've done about 30 million miles. So you are going at super speed. This is not like a slow thing. Like, you see them disappear much, much quicker than you expected once you're out of the atmosphere. There's been some times where you slow down, right? Whilst you were near the planets, you were going slow because you were too close to them.
Gravity influence, yeah.
Gravity.
Well, once you've
gravity
gone
wells.
farther from them, you've just been fast. Going fast at that point. I assume you each are doing different things, but you're probably in awe with a lot of what's going on. You're exploring the quarters, figuring out what is in each of the crates. Where's the food? Where's drinking, supplies, everything. Where's the stuff to... all your pretenses have been put in these chests in the bedroom. You looking through all of this.
But how's the best way to empty the toilet?
On the
It's
construction.
been almost 8 hours until you're going at that super speed. You're almost getting used to it now. I do need con saves though, because there is small adjustments that, for those of you not used to spatial travel, can be quite seasick.
God damn it.
I am rolling so good tonight.
Nice.
Con save. Nope. My dice don't like me. Yeah.
22.
I'm not rolling good, apparently.
Does the ship have shields?
No.
Not that you know of. You haven't really
22,
felt it.
22.
You're not attuned to it. But no, it doesn't.
23.
That's a really sad roll. No, I'm gonna do a re-roll.
Okay.
Because I don't want to use it.
read it before and now I can't find it.
What are you looking for?
The what happens? What's the DC and what happens when you fail it? The concept.
Oops, there's something bad happening.
That's fine. Well, did everybody roll?
23.
I rolled a
23,
23.
21, 23, 13.
With a reroll.
Wow. Where's that reroll so I can delete that?
If that's not enough, because Nyx is the ship itself, she will.
No,
Fine,
no,
hop on.
11 is enough. 13 is enough, sorry. Yeah, no, you all are a bit nauseous, but not sick.
That's a bonus.
For your first travel, it's pretty good. So as you're nearing the 8 hours and Nyx is about calls to Cinder to come switch with her.
Hmm.
You feel the ship slow.
She got second
Yeah.
thoughts on that.
She communicates to you, Cinder.
Do we all feel the jolt?
Yeah, it's not like a jolt. It's like coming out of. It's like when you see, you know, in Star Wars when they came out of hyperspace. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Kinda like that.
Yeah, Nyx. If you're not in the where she is, she'll call out to you through the intercom. She'll be like, Cinder.
Falling out of hyperspace or just stopping?
Stop.
Oh,
it,
is it
stop.
time? I'm on my way.
Coming out. I said coming out. Yeah,
I'll
warp
make
speed.
my way to the bridge.
Okay, so she goes, alright. So it's gonna feel a bit weird, but just bear with me. And she'll reach out to him and like tap him.
Oh, you're doing it, even though it stopped. It slowed down.
What? The ship.
The
What?
ship
We're
slowed
switching,
down. You're
right?
still changing.
She's gonna stop the ship before we swap, right?
No, right. The ship stopped. You don't like. Yeah, you would
Accidentally.
like. Okay, you feel like the ship will continue at that super speed, until you take an action to give it to somebody else, but it won't stop. You'll keep going in that super speed unless that's what they've told you. Something makes it stop for security.
Like
purposes.
like a gravity well or like a
Yeah,
well
you
space.
feel it needing to stop, otherwise you'll crash into
Okay.
something.
Like a space monster.
I thought because she thought for at first it was because she was getting tired, but before she transfers control, she will realize that.
Yeah, you definitely
standby.
feel the ship slow, not because it's reached a destination, but because something bigger than it is too close.
Would the ship alert her to that?
Yes, but she's not been attuned to it enough to know what it is or what it means. And as you look out,
Everyone,
you
stand
spot
by.
it.
Space whale. No, I'm joking.
You have seen those, but they were in
Really?
the wild space. Yes.
Oh, okay. Oh, bugger that.
It is.
Alright.
It is much bigger than you are.
What is it with ships and insect-like styles?
So this is what you see. Much
That-
like maybe 3-4 times bigger than you are.
Yeah,
That is not an insect ship. But Nick doesn't know it.
And you see, if I can do this. Do you see all of those tokens?
Holy cow.
On its hull, on the outside, you
Oh.
see a multitude of
Oh, yeah.
people.
A multitude of people.
of beings. Yes. You are 225 feet away. And it's initiative time. However, this is the end of season 1.
So we roll
How Nisha's
initiative
gonna do that?
when we start up again.
Yes. When we come back with season 2, we'll pick up right in this moment where we left off.
Is that on a space hit though?
I will show you if you're curious what you see in the ship because it'll be interesting. So bear with me. You see. Can I not? Oh, I'm in the wrong way. Okay. You'll see.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, indeed.
Yeah.
You see.
Okay.
Holy crap. We're dead.
You see.
Well, they're not so bad.
You see.
Oh,
Yeah.
They're
crap.
pretty bad.
We all know what they are these days.
You see.
Froggy!
Aww.
You see.
Sure.
Legolas!
Space Legolas. Where's
You
Space
see.
Gimli?
Space Hippo!
Space Hippo.
You see.
Sure.
A bug. Yeah.
A bug. Cool.
You see.
Those weird kids from Star Wars.
Ah! That's where
And
he
you
went.
see.
Is that the monkey-looking ones?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
That was he.
They seem to be being brought in from this far away. That's all you can make out. And this, my friends, is where Methis, Legends of Methis, will end. And in
So-
about 6 months' time, where Saving Methis will begin.
I'm surprised you don't just call it Space.
Wow.
Space Method.
30
Amethyst
episodes.
Wars.
Wow.
6 months is too long.
It is in 6 months, but don't you worry. I cannot start it next week. Don't you worry because there will be many news. Those I will be recruiting. Those of you who will be recruited will not have to wait 6 months. We'll be doing things before that. We'll have a couple of session zeros and a couple of games for you guys to get up to speed. For those of you who will be joining season 2, I will also make announcements. So it's not gonna, for the viewers, it will be 6 months. Where for the players, it will not be necessarily 6 months. It won't feel like it.
Oh, I forgot to check stowaways. That princess didn't sneak on board.
A Beer Saga is coming back. Yeah, what's up with that?
Yeah, A Beer Saga is
finished.
coming back. I was going to say announcements, but I wanted to thank everyone who's been with us on this journey, everyone who supported the Legends of Methis, everyone who's been, who's watched it, who's liked it, who's given feedback on it. It's been wonderful, and it was my first homebrew campaign, so I'm glad it was enjoyed. And yes, announcements. Avier Saga is returning, but even before Avier Saga, I believe we have announcements before that. On Monday at 8 p.m. EST, we have Dragonlance. On Wednesday, Wednesday. It's my Wednesday, but it's your Tuesday. Tuesday at 8 p.m. EST, we have Astoria for episode 2. After the dramatic end of last time. We have on the Discord next Thursday, Giants and Dragons coming as well. We have Saturday, Strixhaven. And there will be Citizens of Phandalin throughout the week. Avier Saga will be returning not this Thursday, but the Thursday after. So there will be plenty of games. There will be a new game also starting within the next month. It'll be Harry Potter themed, but I will leave most of those details to be announced by the DM when we come live with it and when we announce it. there will plenty of things happening. So join our Discord server. Come join our amazing community. There is a challenge of the month going on for people who like drawing art. There with the prize for the winner. There is a lot going on with our community, so come join us. It's fun.
Quick question.
Yes.
How many adventures does it take to change a light bulb?
Oh no. End the stream. End the stream.
All of them. Never split the party.
Ah. Nick's
Hey,
loses
it's
control of the ship
tradition.
and crash into them.
All right.
Sorry, we should just give him to the Mind Flayer. It's fine.
The players, I will just announce this. The players will also have homework between season 1 and 2 of Methis. They have an entire book to read.
What book?
Unless they want to be so in character that they actually don't understand how things work in this place.
I reckon that would be fun.
Well, what if we're too poor to get the book?
If you do, I recommend everyone reading the Astral Adventures Guide from Spelljammer, because that will be the basics that we're going to follow of the rules. I will homebrew a few stuff. I will get a few things in there. I am happy to take suggestions from what the players have seen in sci-fi media. Remember, I am not a sci-fi person, so you'll have to probably explain it to me 3 times before I understand it. But if you give me an idea that I find it cool and it doesn't go against what's in here, why not? Okay? As long as it doesn't make my life 1,000 times harder. So, with that, this is officially the end.
Oh, Saint just came up with a great idea.
What is the idea?
A Monday night,
For you to read it to us.
like a bedtime
I will read
story.
it. I will happily do a Monday night on Discord. Just reading the Astral Adventures Guide to you. I am totally okay with that.
Yeah, she would do that. And it would put everyone to sleep as well, so it's beneficial.
Yes, I did get a lot of ideas from our amazing Dungeon Boys.
Not in a bad
podcast.
sense. Can I stay?
Who are
Yes.
the sponsors of Astoria?
Yes. Yeah, I did learn a lot from listening to the Dungeon Boys, but I am not going to outright copyright them, okay? So bear that in mind. And thank you so much. And I guess
Thank you, everyone.
see everyone in 6 months. You'll see us before then for other streams, but for Methis, you will only see the Kick Butt DM again in 6 months' time. If you want to see me earlier than that, come join the Discord. I have